Yes, welcome on in, Dandyfloss. So happy to have you. That we actually, I was thinking about how we wound up here today, and I realized our first interaction was a bit of an unusual one because I've seen your streams that I followed you on Twitter a while back, but I think the first time that we actually had quote unquote conversation with each other was regarding a bug in Vampire Survivors.
Oh, it might have been. Yeah, I've encountered a few of them.
They had an
Yeah.
update. It was probably a couple months ago at this point, where when you launched the game, that there would be a momentary
Oh.
display of an IP address, and you made a tweet, very rightfully calling it out, saying, "Hey, this is a
No.
problem for streamers."
It wasn't an IP address. It was your file location.
Oh yes,
It was the location name of a file that the game loaded up at the very start.
yes, that's correct.
And
But if you
a
have
lot of
things,
people have your real name in your files, and it had a default location that you couldn't change.
yes,
So yeah,
yeah,
I did tweet that. I did end up deleting that tweet.
yeah, because what happened
because
was
they fixed it very quickly.
yeah, 'cause what happened was you tweeted that out and you were like, I don't know who the right person to tweet at is. So you tweeted at the game itself. And I responded with the developer because the developer is not directly linked, I think, on their Twitter account. So we then got them tagged on it. And they did respond really quickly. It was actually pretty impressive that they had its turnaround time of like, might have been 4 to 8 hours or something. And
It was
patch
very
done.
quick.
Like, it was
I think, like,
startlingly quick.
I tweeted it, and I think I went live, and then came back afterwards and realized that the tweet had like 2,000 likes or something, and I was like, "Oh, that's a surprising amount actually for what I usually tweet."
And then I DM'd
and there was
you
a reply
saying,
from them.
yeah, they replied saying, one, it was fixed. And then I DM'd you probably like a day later because I saw the tweet, the initial one, still circulating. I was like, you were super in the right to call that out. It was a really good thing. But a lot of folks are still seeing that because it was doing numbers and incorrectly thinking that it's still broken. You might want to delete it, and that's why you wound up deleting it.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, it's one of those weird situations where like it's doing quite well, but it's actually at this point it's misinformation. So I'm going to get rid of that and make sure that people aren't that worried about it anymore because it's been fixed. I could have done. I think I did do a follow-up tweet saying it's been fixed. That one didn't obviously do as well. I should have put in like the replies and say this is no longer an issue, or like quote tweeted it. But yeah, it did at least get the message out there.
Yeah,
so I'm glad that worked.
That was up there for one of the more unique introductions that I've had to somebody, at least in terms of conversation and everything.
I will say that I wasn't actually the person that first noticed this bug. It was Noraman who's in the chat there. He put it in my this is a thing when you first open up Vampire Survivors. You might want to be careful. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna share that with people. that's
relevant information for sure.
That is not something that I want my fellow VTubers to have to go through. So that was very helpful because like most streamers at least load up the game before they go live. But if the game
if you're
they need to reload it, and then that might show it.
Or if you're shifting from either another game or just chatting, and then you load up the game later, that it's the fail case requirement of open the game with it on screen is not a very high barrier to entry for things to go wrong. So big deal. But also, I realized I sort of jumped into things and didn't even let you properly introduce yourself. So I know most folks in chat probably know who you are, but for anyone who might not be familiar or watching on YouTube after the fact, if you could, let us know who you are.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Captain Dandyfloss. I am the owner of the private luxury cruise ship, the VMS Litterbox. As you can see behind me, this is my cabin. This is where we do most of my streams from. I've been streaming for about 2.5 years now. I started in about May 2020, but I fell into it by accident. I didn't start with the intention of being a VTuber. I've talked about this before on my stream. I'm happy to talk about it here if you like. Where in 2019, I was in hospital for a few months, and while I was recovering, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I came across Beat Saber. There were a few YouTubers that made it look like a lot of fun. I really wanted to do what they did. Specifically, Make You Move and Omotia. They were both VTubers that played Beat Saber with their avatar visible, camera behind them, playing really fun music. And I was like, that looks like a lot of fun. I want to play that game. So once I could actually, move around after hospital, I bought an Oculus Quest 1, because at the time that was the only one there was, and I used it exclusively as a Beat Saber machine. I didn't really play anything else. I just played Beat Saber. After a while, I got quite good, and I wanted to record videos, share it with my friends. And if you go on my YouTube channel, my earliest videos at the very bottom, absolute crap, because they were the direct output recordings from the Oculus, and they were square resolution, really bad, audio out of sync. You could barely see anything, but I was really proud of them because I was like, I can actually share this with my friends and show them, like, almost, sort of,
yeah, everyone has
what
to
it's
start
like
somewhere.
to play. If you squint, maybe. And those first ones, those really bad ones, I was like, I can do better than this. How can I make this look better? I want to do what these people on YouTube are doing. So I spent months researching how to get a 3D model into Beat Saber, using an Oculus Quest, because at the time it didn't have very good connections to a PC. You had to do a lot of mods to make sure that it actually connected to it with a cable. And I eventually managed to get a pre-made model from a website called booth.pm. I think if you're watching and you're a VTuber, you're probably familiar with it for some kind of VTubing resources.
Yeah, they have a lot of different assets over there.
Yes. And I found one that said, this can be used in content creation. And I was like, I don't know how much I'm going to do this, but if it's on YouTube, that is content creation. I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to go with something that says that it's okay to do what I'm doing with it. And that was my very first model. That's the one I did. And I recorded a few videos with it. And in the process of coming up with this system, I met a lot of people, made some new friends. Demon Queen Azazel is in the chat there. I can see there. Hello. She's one of the ones from all the way back then. I'm amazed that you're still around. Thank you very much. She helped me out a lot, and a few other people did as well back then, making sure that things worked in Unity so that they worked in Beat Saber in the videos. I learned a lot of skills, and I at the time I was like, okay, YouTube videos are a lot of effort to go through to record, edit, upload, make sure they work, audio's in sync and everything. And they get like 3 views. I'm like, this is
inefficient.
How do I make these look better? So that the time I'm putting into this is better for people to look at. And I realized that, like, okay, recording and uploading stuff takes time. I might as well just stream it directly to Twitch, so the people that are helping me with this, they can give me some feedback in real time, and they can say, like, okay, here's something wrong with your legs, here's something wrong with your tail, here's something wrong with your camera angle, and we can talk about it in real time. And the more I did that, the more people just showed up in general from the rest of Twitch, not just the people that I initially wanted to stream it directly to and for, but new people came by. They were like, oh, this is actually quite fun, I like it here. So after a few months of doing that, of exclusively streaming Beat Saber 3 times a week for 2 hours a time while I was working a full-time job, I accidentally stood on my cable for my VR headset. And so I was sat down at my table, the headset was on my head, the cable was going down to the floor, and I went to stand up and I was standing on the cable, and like it yanked off the back of my head. And it ripped the cable out of the socket, but also damaged the socket in a way that it wouldn't connect to the PC again.
Oh no!
Which was disastrous at the time, because it was the only thing I was doing on my channel. Bear in mind, I probably had like 100 followers at the time, so the impact in the grander scheme of things probably wasn't that much. But for me, I was like, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
what more can I do instead of just VR? And after like 2 or 3 months of streaming, I didn't realize that VTubing or VTubers in general were a thing. I was enclosed in my own little bubble of Beat Saber streamers, just doing our own thing. I didn't realize that there was like this whole community of people doing exactly what I was doing. I didn't know about HoloLive. I'd seen a few other VTubers. I'd seen, I'd seen Korone, I'd seen Kazuna Eye, but I didn't make the connection that they were the same thing and that I was doing the same thing as them. So I was like, heck. I can stream other games on my Twitch channel. So I think one of the first games I streamed other than Beat Saber was Celeste, I think it was. I can't remember much else, what else I used to do back then. I don't. Yeah, Azazel's the one that told me about them, and it put me in a big rabbit hole because this was before HoloLive English came about, and everyone, like the entire scene exploded around that time.
Oh yeah,
I've spoken to a lot of people who got into VTubing around that time, and they were like, I always knew about VTubers and that I knew it was something that happened in Japan, but I didn't think it was something that I could do over here in the West. And I was like, I've just been doing this accidentally.
Yeah.
If you knew about it in the first place, what's stopping you? It was kind of funny, and like I've just kind of developed it from there. I worked full time until September last year, at which point my job was just collapsing from underneath me. I was working in IT support, and it was going terribly, and I had to get out of there. And I was like, I'm actually at the point where I could probably, if I dedicate enough time and effort into this, I could do this full time. And it was a risk. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this for like a couple of months, see how things are going. And the moment I quit my job and streamed 5 hours a day, 6 days a week at the time, I've gone down to 5 now, but like streaming every day that much time, my followers and viewership just exponentially increased after that point. That's
what happens when you get consistency.
Exactly. I've streamed like so often since then, like very consistently, and it's like it's been basically a straight line up ever since then, and it's been really nice. I know it's a thing. It's not a thing that everybody can do. I'm well aware that I'm very lucky. So I know it's not a thing that everyone can. So don't do what I do. It was very risky. It could have gone much worse. But I'm very thankful for everyone that's stuck by me and helped me get to where I am today, to be honest. Because it's honestly been a dream. I've loved it ever since I've started it.
That's so interesting.
I've always struggled with some jobs. Like I'll do a job because it's money or it's something I'm good at, but not something I enjoy. And this is just everything I've always wanted to do, and I love it. Like I get to play video games and be stupid and have fun with people. It's really nice.
I don't think I've ever had a guest who accidentally got into VTubing, at least not in that way. That I've had some folks that accidentally got into content creation, and a couple folks that sort of stumbled onto things and quickly jumped in. But that is a very unique set of, all right, first off, the fact that you started streaming as a form of real-time debugging and just as a feedback tool, not actually with the intent of, oh, I'm going to stream as a content creator, that at the time was still mentally, okay, I'm going to stream with the end goal of getting something edited on YouTube, and this is just going to be used that way. I can get that feedback. That you essentially accidentally started streaming, and then a couple months after accidentally starting streaming, having the revelation of, oh, wait a minute, I've actually been VTubing without knowing it and without knowing of the broader landscape, and that you fell into it in that early time, one of the best possible times, because you're absolutely correct that Hololive English and that debut really just was a huge catalyst for the VTuber community as a whole. And I will admit that I am in that camp of folks that was brought in by Hololive English, that I happened to be working and have an early schedule at that point in time. And I had heard about Hololive. I knew what VTubers were. I'd heard of Keyta and I way back when, but I'd seen something come across my timeline on Facebook or Twitter saying, hey, Hololive is actually going to do an English wave. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. I've seen a clip or two, but I'm not going to tune into those streams because, well, they're in Japanese and, let's see what the English one is.
So yeah. It does make it a little bit more accessible, but it's not quite as, like, you can't
it's not the same as
quite
watching
connect
live.
with it as much.
Yeah. And for me, I'm someone who, on the side, does a lot of live event work for conventions, a couple concerts here and there, and late 2020, early 2021, there were not a lot of live events happening for obvious reasons. And sort of what it was for me, that I happened to be able to tune in to Calliope Mori's debut stream, and she was the first of Hololive English to actually have that stream. And seeing chat Zoom, for whatever reason, just sort of got the lights going in my extrovert brain that had been craving live events, conventions, concert, and just seeing the amount of excitement and just, like I said, chat Zooming, for whatever reason, was the closest thing I'd felt to a convention in 8-9 months. And that was my sort of accidental falling into the rabbit hole, as it were. But it's so funny that you wound up in on the ground floor without the intent or the actual just plan to do that, and realizing, oh wait, I'm already doing it. It's not even that you were there early and decided to, but just it's such a fun little set of circumstances.
It's so absurd. Like, none of it was planned. I just accidentally started, like, I was like, oh, maybe I can start doing, like, I can get an overlay. I should get a Twitter account. I should, like, I should make a Discord server for everyone. It was, I started, like, slowly gaining traction and just, like, figuring things out mostly on my own, but I had a few people that I'd, like, talked to at the time. It was quite difficult, because before, if you started, if you fell into the rabbit hole after Hololive English, you don't realize how few resources there were in English for VTubing before they started, because when they started, it not only attracted, like, new people to do VTubing, but also, like, new viewers and artists. And coders and everyone that makes all these assets that people can use, not just for free, but also paid ones. The amount of stuff that just exploded at that time didn't exist when I started. I used a different program than VC Face, which is the one I use for my model currently, and I have used for the past couple of year or two, I think. But 2.5 years ago, I had to use, I don't remember the name of it. Do I still have it?
That's one of the most fascinating parts for me about the VTubing community as a whole. Just, I'm a bit of a business
Magic
nerd.
Mirror or Luppets. That's the one.
You're very right in saying that, not only was it that there were not as many VTubers, but that it wound up galvanizing an entire industry, or sort of just set of industries, because you're right that artists, riggers, modelers, programmers, that there's this whole ecosystem really that goes into VTubing, and certainly streaming as a whole, but VTubing ends up having naturally those extra steps, those extra factors. And it's been really cool that there have been artists who were, trying to find what their niche was, or trying to find an audience that wound up sort of dragged into the rabbit hole in their own way, and they aren't even VTubers, but that they realized, oh, I have character design sort of style that fits what a lot of VTubers are looking for, or a bunch of folks who decided to pick up rigging and had no knowledge and just started out with that program in a couple of videos that, like you said, at the time mostly weren't in English, because either they wanted to be a VTuber and couldn't find or pay a rigger because there weren't many at the time, and then have gone on to just be really prolific riggers themselves. and it's so fun to see all these different types of people with different skills get involved and find their way into the greater amorphous blob that we refer to largely as quote unquote the VTubing community.
I think at the time, Azazel's in the chat there saying that not only did VC Face not exist, but VTube Studio didn't. So 2D VTubers had to mostly make do on their own, or use a program that was just poorly translated. I don't even know the name of it because I've barely done 2D VTubing. But it's like once VTube Studio came about, more people could do 2D model work and rigging, and the explosion of art styles and like artists coming in to make it more accessible for people. I still refer to that period as the V boom. Like it's like everyone calls like, oh, you're such a boomer because you're around, because you're like 60 or 70 years old. No, I'm not. Shut the fuck up. Can I swear? Sorry, I should.
Oh yes,
I should
absolutely.
have checked.
Oh, trust me.
Okay.
I have had people on that are far more profane than you.
Oh, good. Okay. So the amount of people that say I'm old, I'm really not. But like V boomers are from the end of 2020 to the start of 2021, I consider, because that was the huge explosion of when VTubing really took off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still proud that I was around before that, but I was utter crap at the start.
To be fair, a lot of folks were in that boat. A lot of folks were learning. A lot of folks are still learning. What's so weird is that it feels like it's been ages. It feels like another time, but in reality, the broader VTubing boom, and even before the boom, that I would say the layman wasn't able to get into VTubing prior to 3-ish years ago. That obviously Keys and I and a couple others way back when, that Keys and I at the time, there was a huge barrier to entry because you needed very specific, very expensive hardware to do anything. And even in the early days of HoloLive, that they were working with proprietary software, and modeling was not easy to come by, and that you would have to pay a lot of money and find somebody from a very small set of people who had those skills to get things set up. But it was partially VTube Studio and VC Face and a couple other programs that really made things accessible, that allowed the broader public to get into VTubing. And for how much growth and change we've seen in terms of technology, just the size of the community over the past 3 years, in actuality, this is still just the early days. That it's only been a couple years. The whole thing for me is, think about where we're going to be 3 years from now. That this time last year feels just so different in terms of resources and other factors compared to what we have now. Imagine where we'll be this time next year.
It feels like, I will say that from what I've seen, the major hurdles have mostly been overcome. I think from now on, I think there's just going to be like minor progression, but I don't really know about that. Like, I could be completely wrong. There might be something that just comes out that's just like a huge game changer for everything. But like most of the major problems for people to get into VTubing have been overcome because of this V boom.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people suddenly realize that this is something that they can do, and a lot of people that can contribute to making that happen have done it. So VC Face is a free 3D model tracking program. iPhones have just free face tracking software. So if you have an iPhone, you can do what I do. That is what I do. I use an app that I did pay like $15 in it to make it a little bit better. But like it's a base free app. So as long as you have an iPhone, you have a computer, you can you can buy a model from booth.pm, and you can just start VTubing. It's never been as easy to get into VTubing, but I will say that like I do think we are over that initial popularity hurdle at the very start.
I think that we've gotten rid of most of the barriers to entry, and now I think we're really going to enter into the first age of VTuber innovation that, like you said, a lot of the past couple years has been making it so VTubing is possible, accessible, getting resources to be just more optimized for the most basic of operations. And we've had some really interesting innovations, Twitch integrated throwing system, and that there's a lot of different assets and ways that you can use VTube Studio or VC Face. But I think the real twists over these next couple of years is now that we aren't just working on infrastructure and sort of the basics, where can VTubing go from here, and what types of things can you do in a virtual environment that just aren't going to be things that facecam streamers would even think to do. And at this point, we ourselves probably can't think of those answers, and that's part of what innovation is. It's finding out what you didn't realize you wanted, what you didn't realize you could use or need, and that, I think, is going to be the real story of these next couple of years.
There's a lot of development in, I think, Unreal environments currently. I've seen, oh gosh, what's her name? Pumpkin Potion. She recently came out with her new Unreal environment. Looks incredible. I wish I could do something like that, but I'm not talented enough or game developer-y enough to learn Unreal. I've been using Unity for everything about my modeling stuff. Even then, I'm not like that. I'm not that great at it. There's a lot of stuff I still struggle with. I do the very basic of stuff. I can do as much as I can, as in, like, I can add my old hat back to my model. I can do things like that. I can do very stupid things like give myself glasses, or like a detective outfit. That's about as good as I can do currently. I wish I could do environment stuff. I've got the same 3D background. It's just a rendered background. It's not actually an environment I can go around in. However, I did have a friend work on a 3D environment of this background for me. I do have it as a Unity environment, but I've never been able to go further with it. I've got it modeled, it's ready, but I don't know how to take it any further by, like, putting cameras in it, or have interactive stuff, or how to walk around it. So I've never really been able to do much with it, and it's such a shame. I wish I could do more with it. Depressy Ducks reminded me of the shoebox, actually. I did remake, you probably haven't seen this, actually, because this was like last year or year before. I remade this background in a cardboard box with paper cutouts, and like I still have it here, actually. Yeah, it's on my shelf. What I did was I made little paper cutouts of my model with different expressions, and put them on lollipop sticks that I could stick out from underneath the box as like a little puppet show. I've been meaning to get it back out again, actually. It's really fun, and I'd like to do another stream of that at some point. So that's it's not something that's like super technical or something. Like, anybody could do this. But I hadn't seen anyone do anything like it before or since, so it was good fun, and maybe I'll do it again at some point.
Definitely. Also, I missed a couple follows. Chalk on M, Demon Queen Azazel, Messiad 1234, and Blue Lot, or
Ignore
Blue
this one.
Lotus?
Ignore this one.
Oh, definitely ignoring that one. MGS Aqua, Sussy Nuggetos, Dandy Simp, and Thorn VT. Thank you all so much for the follows. And Domania Duck. Yeah, I think Domania Duck. I hope so. And Formal
I recognize
Skeleton.
all of those people.
Ah, yes, Formal Skeleton, as opposed to their cousin, Informal Skeleton. And Gail, my GG, thank you all so much for the follows. Welcome on in. Seeing a lot of folks. Really happy to have you all here. Yeah, so I've actually seen a couple people really getting into, like you were talking about, the Unity 3D environments. I definitely think that's one of the next frontiers, so to speak, for VTubing. That I'm not sure if you're familiar with Duper. That he's one of my past guests. He's done some really fun things with 3D environments. That he actually just no longer has individual scenes, and that everything is in that one space, and it's all just moving the camera from place to place. And I know that right now, that's once again getting to higher barrier to entry type of technology, but that's how things go. Then something that's new is going to be a bit more difficult to work with, but then over time, it becomes more accessible, a bit simpler to work with. So it's really cool to see that area being explored right now, and I think that it's definitely going to be one of those next areas. So I hope that you're able to eventually find your way over there, and I'm excited to hear that you already have those types of concepts already prepped, even if they haven't been fully implemented at this time.
like my plan in general in the long term is to get a full 3D reconstruction of the cruise ship at sea or at a dock, and I can just have different rooms I can go to. I can have like a cinema room. I can have an arcade. I can have the galley. I can have all these rooms that we can go to, because I currently only have the bridge, and it's this viewpoint, and I want to get a full 3D reconstruction. And hopefully have it as like a VR chat environment as well, so I can invite people onto the ship, and I can actually walk around and have them see people. That would be really nice. But the barrier for me at the moment is not so much the environment work. There are people that can do that, but also designing and building a cruise ship in 3D. That's not the kind of overlap of expertise that really exists at the moment. There are shipbuilders, yes. Do they care enough about VTubing to answer my questions?
Yeah.
Are they going to be like, well, which company is this cruise ship going to be for? Is this going to be Princess? Is this going to be
Royal
Carnival?
Caribbean?
Is it Royal Caribbean? Like, no, it's for me as a Twitch streamer.
I suppose
they can be like, okay, how many thousands of pounds are you going to pay me? So yeah, that's something that is kind of the thing that I've not been able to work on, sadly.
So I may have mispronounced it. I think it was Domania Duck. I'm hoping I'm getting that right. But
yeah.
Welcome on in. And yeah, so it's sort of interesting that there's a lot of different schematics, and I'm sure you can find the layouts for different cruise ships and whatnot, and then there's just the question of, all right, what is feasible to implement?
Think that. I've certainly looked them up. They're really hard to find.
Really?
I think, like the shipbuilding industry is actually quite enclosed, and they keep their secrets because they don't want competitors to steal their blueprints. So they're not exactly public information. So I'd have to talk to people that do it, and I don't know where to start with that. So that's why so for those of you who are here listening, this is my formal apology for unkept promises years ago of having a full 3D environment. I have looked into it, and it's much harder than I thought it was going to be. I'll see what I can do. I don't want like a massive cruise ship. That's not the idea. The idea of my cruise ship is a small luxury cruise ship. It is more of a private yacht than a massive cruise ship. So it's not like Royal Caribbean size. So it's not that kind of thing. It's a small private yacht essentially.
I don't normally ask folks about their model. That it's something that I feel a lot of other folks ask and do that well, but for you, I'm actually pretty curious, especially since you lean into that flavoring a bit more, especially even looking into a cruise ship. That is seafaring something that you have had an interest in before VTubing? Because as someone who, as we were saying, really just fell into all this accidentally, the decision to go with a captain of a luxury cruise liner like that is a pretty specific one. That you're not just a cat girl. That it's not just a captain, but it feels like there might be something more to this. Is there?
There certainly is. Part of it, again, is because of the accident of me falling into VTubing, but also partly is because of myself. So, like, initially, my first model was like this sailor cat girl that people may have seen before. It turned out her model was tiny. I didn't realize until I got my new models. I was like, why is this model like 2 feet taller than this other one? But she was like a sailor cat girl, and I was like, okay, I want to be able to move away from a publicly available model. I had people find that model in like VR chat worlds or in advertisements for things, because it's like it's that thing that anybody could drop $30 on and buy.
It's still a stock model at that point.
Yeah, I had somebody send me a TikTok and said, "Is this you in this TikTok? It's saying really bad things," and I'm like, "No, that's not me." So I didn't want that to happen again. So in roughly around like November, December of 2020. I decided, like, okay, I'm gonna need a custom model, and to I want to do what other people are doing with VTubing, which is have a theme. I'm gonna have a style and like lore that I can lean into. How can I come up with something that's related to this old model, but when I get my new model, it's clearly related to that old one, but it's moving on from it in a quite a distinct way.
So once again, an accident. It wasn't
once again an accident,
necessarily that you had the.
It was a conscious
standalone
decision, though.
That it makes sense from just a branding standpoint that if you're going to have that brand shift, you don't want to just completely switch over to something totally unrelated, because that's going to be a bit jarring for followers, and that in terms of folks finding you, that if they are looking for Dandyfloss, expecting one thing and seeing something totally unrelated, they might just think they have the wrong channel or something. But making sure that that evolution is at least tangential to what you had makes sense, but at that same time, your point of origin was still an accident, so you sort of had that, all right, well, I'm here already, where do I go from here? And I think you asked yourself a very logical set of questions.
It wasn't just that model, though, because I do actually have a background in sailing. My family, I grew up on the coast, and I grew up sailing a lot. I didn't like it myself that much. I didn't like I didn't like the act of sailing. I like being on the water. I like being comfortable on the water, but I don't like sailing a boat with actual sails, and like like leaning over a lot and capsizing and falling in the water. That's the part I didn't like. So I wanted to my family has a long history of that. My grandfather built boats. My dad built boats as well, like would he would he'd buy an old sailing boat for cheap, spend a year or two building it up, repairing it, making it seaworthy, sailing it for a year or two, and then selling it, and then buying another cheap one, and repeat that. He did that most of my childhood until I left home. And he doesn't do that so much nowadays. He's now settled on a boat that's a bit better for him. And I thought, well, this is something that I have prior background experience in, being at sea, but I want to make it a little bit more for myself, and a way for me to at least acknowledge where I've come from, and my family background and history is to at least like acknowledge that I have a history at sea. So I wanted to go with something out there, and I was like, I could do like piracy. I've seen a few pirate VTubers. I haven't seen any cruise ship VTubers.
And you were saying that you like being comfortable on the water. You don't necessarily like all of the, all right, hoist the sails, a lot of the more tedious and really demanding physical labor. So the decision to go, all right, let's go with cruise liner. I can certainly appreciate that decision. And you're right. I don't think I've seen anybody with the... Actually, I may have seen one or two others that go with the cruise ship captain aesthetic. That
as far as I'm aware, I was the first. So if they are, I'm fine with it. Like there's a finite number of things that people can copy, and people can come up with. Like the number of AI VTubers or dragon VTubers, or just like I'm a cat girl. I'm well aware that I am not unique in that sense, but just like I think the things that I do hopefully make me stand out. Maybe I'm well aware it's a saturated market. And I'm doing the best I can.
It's going to be very difficult to have a concept that is totally unrelated to anything anybody's ever done before.
Absolutely.
At this point, that there's going to be crossover, and but you, like you said, are more than just a cat girl, and that you have this extra flavoring, this extra style that is very much your own, and that I very much agree helps you stand out, and that you're able to bring in. It's cool that it's not just your family history, your own interest, but then also just the kicker of it all being it wound up fitting so well with where you had accidentally found yourself anyways, that's just really, it's cool that it all came together in that way.
It's so interesting that like it's all just accidentally fallen into place. I've also
some of the best things in life go, though.
That's true. I have since had like expansions on my backstory and lore, things like a fun story that people can have to go along with all this. I think Mark Laws in the chat there. He's come up with a backstory comic that we worked on together. The explanation of where I came from. We're still working on the next stage of how I got the cruise ship, but the initial backstory is that I used to be a pirate. I was a cat raised aboard a pirate ship full of dogs, and I eventually had to leave at some point. That we're still working on the explanation for, but it gives me a reason to have Beat Saber swords like this. I can have both of these and make Beat Saber videos with my own swords, and it was really fun. So being able to have these as well is quite nice. I mostly like the single one that splits in two. You can see that there's actually 2 blades here.
Oh yeah, I never noticed that.
Yeah, it's actually 2 blades. The handle splits in 2. You can see the way that they connect. It's going to go through my head a little bit. You can see it actually splits in 2.
Also, as you were talking about Beat Saber earlier, I had the revelation of your headphones are from Beat Saber. That initially was like, oh, you know, red, blue headphones. That makes sense. That's just neat. But that they are red and blue specifically because of the Beat Saber colors.
That was a very conscious design choice. That's exactly what I asked for. I didn't really have any Beat Saber like colorings or like hints in my previous Sailor design. I do still have that model. I still use it occasionally, but I've moved on to this one because it's high quality. More people know about me with this now as well. But I wanted to have something that at least acknowledged where I came from. And I thought the headphones were at least a nice touch.
I like that as a throwback, and that it looks very natural. That until you told me about the Beat Saber background, I just sort of assumed it was an accessory choice.
You don't make the association.
Yeah, but if you know, you know.
Exactly. And I do miss that old outfit sometimes. Speaking of accidents, actually, in fact, I got my previous model by accident as well, actually. Would you like to hear the story about that?
Why not? While we're on accidents of accidents, how did we get
this we're on my entire VTubing career is an accident, so let's just bring up another one. So as I mentioned, like November, December 2020, I was looking into coming up with my own custom model design, and I was speaking with a friend called Carrot. She is now part of my Holo TV.
I love Carrot. She was one of my first guests.
She came up with all of my custom VTubing designs, including this one. She's the one that came up with the design for this. I worked with her on both of them. She came up with a couple of sketches for my sailor outfit. And I settled on one of them, and I was like, this is quite nice. I'm going to take this to some 3D modelers and see what can be done with this. It was just some sketches. They weren't like full rendered drawings at the time. I was like, maybe this is fine. I don't know how detailed it needs to be for a 3D model. If like while they're working on it, they can talk to me about the design process and like if there's any details and stuff that can be added in, maybe that would be fine. So I applied with that sketch to a few other 3D modelers. And I wanted to keep it secret because I was like, I don't want my design to get leaked before it's ready, so that I can have a whole announcement detail and all that. Like, you can have a debut, because I didn't have my own original one at the start because I just fell into it. I won't name names because I had an argument with one of the 3D artists that I applied to. I won't name names because it's annoying about how big they are. And they had such an influence at the time, and they still do. But I applied for for a model from them, and it turned out, reading through their application process, they said, as part of agreeing to this, you will agree to have your model made on stream. And I was like, I guess that's fine if it's being made. As long as it's being made, I'm okay with that, because I'm getting a model. If they're doing that, I'm okay with that. But it turned out he would actually review his applications on stream as well, and that wasn't made clear. I was okay with having the model made. I wasn't okay with having the design critiqued in front of thousands of people live on Twitch and put up on YouTube. And he took one look at my sketch design and said, "This is ugly, this is oily, it's just bad, I can't work with this. Come back to me when you have a better design." And that was all he said to me on... I didn't even know he was streaming it. It's all he said on that stream in regards to my design. And then he just moved on to the next design in this like 2 or 3 hour application review stream. I didn't find out about that until somebody in somebody else's Discord server tagged me and pinged me and said, "Is this you on this stream? It was a Dandyfloss with a familiar design. Is this you?" So I looked at the video, saw what he'd said, and I DM'd him saying like, "What the fuck? Excuse me, that's not really professional. You're just calling it bad for no reason. If you're going to critique something, give some actual feedback. Say like, okay, we need more detail here. It needs to be closer. We need more angles. It needs to, like, you know, like, give us actual feedback." And all he said was it was ugly and it's bad. And I got really furious at this, and I was like, okay, I'm going to withdraw my application regardless. I know you're not going to take it anyway, but I'm going to formally withdraw my application from your model selection process. And
that's unfortunate.
I was heartbroken because it was the first custom design I'd had as VTubing, and I was really upset about it. And a week went by, and I got a message on Twitter from somebody saying, "I saw that video where you applied for your 3D model. I liked your design. I'd like to make a 3D model for you. I've never made a VTuber model. I've only ever made 3D statues. I feel like it's something I'd like to do." And it took us about 3 or 4 months working together through this process of turning just a rendered, like, you know, T-posing 3D model into a functioning VTubing avatar. There were things that were wrong with it. I will be honest. There are things that are still wrong with it. You know, there's like small details that people won't notice on stream. But we worked together, and that's how I got my original sailor outfit. It wasn't perfect. There were quite a few things, like, you know, the texturing wasn't very good. Carrot redid a couple of the textures on it for me because she was a better artist than this 3D modeler. But that's how it came about, and I was really excited to get to use it because I got rejected in quite a public manner initially, but somebody watching that video liked my design enough to offer to make more for me.
Yeah,
I
so
did pay them still.
It worked out in the end that you found someone who was obviously interested and passionate about it, and that's really good. So it's unfortunate that you had that circumstance happen, but I'm really glad that it ended in such a positive way. And I actually was just checking my records. So this is episode 89 of VTuber Talk. Carrot was episode 4.
Wow. When was this?
This was
last year?
It would have been at that point in time, February 2021. That she was
That's
one of
roughly
the first
time
guests.
that this was happening, actually. That's really funny.
That's amazing.
Wow.
It all comes full circle.
And she's now gone corpro. She's now in My Hollow TV.
Yeah,
I've not hit Twitch partner, so we're both doing really well for ourselves. That's really funny, actually, having that, like, the experience between the start of there and here now.
Yeah, just the parallels. And that when I first had her on the show, that was multiple iterations back on her model, back when she had the orange hair, and that she very much looked like a carrot.
That's when I first met her, yeah.
That's funny. I did not actually know that there was that connection, because I know that you're familiar with a good number of my past guests. That, you know, it's a pretty small community at this point, and inevitably there's going to be folks that know each other. But I didn't know that you knew her, and especially not in that way. So that's very fun.
Yeah, we're pretty close in that regard, because she's literally my VTubing mum.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's very funny. She came up with my whole design, which there's a bit more of a clear view.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nautical stuff with the compass. and you can see the
I do
sword on the
appreciate
back
that
there.
the tail moves.
It wiggles. It doesn't like go upwards. I sadly didn't ask for it to animate upwards. It does just hang there. So I wish I did a little bit more with it that way. I've seen people who have 3D tails that like lift behind them and they wave around like this. I'm not good enough at animating for that kind of stuff to figure it out myself. So whenever I'm in Beat Saber, it just hangs at the bottom there, shaking around, and everyone's commenting on it, and I'm like, oh, could have done something else with it. But that's all like that can all be changed anyway. That's all good. But yeah, Carrot's wonderful, and I'm really glad that you got the chance to talk with her as well.
Yeah, she's just absolutely delightful. Also, Boaz Pelosian. I'm always awful at reading usernames, but thank you for the follow. So there have been a couple folks in chat mentioning, oh, on this new cruise ship, you need to have a pilk pool. And you told me just before the show, because there was a couple folks mentioning it, even in the pre-show chat. I know that pilk is a thing in the VTuber community. I know it's that gag drink that people will do for, subathons, charity, what have you. It sounds like there might be something even beyond the normal, all right, this is gross experience, because it's obviously a running gag with your regulars. So what's up with that?
Can't escape from this, can I? I thought it was a joke. I didn't think pilk was real. I tried it once on stream, and I was like, this is actually all right. I probably rate it like a 6 out of 10. It's not terrible, but it's not delicious.
It doesn't
it's
seem
okay.
like it's awful, and certainly not something I would make myself, but I'm planning on including it on the goal list for my upcoming charity marathon. It's like, all right, how bad can it be?
I would describe it similar to like a Coke float.
Yeah, and I like floats.
Yeah, they're really nice. However, at the debut of this model, when I had this, I did my debut on my birthday this year, in May. So I had it was a simultaneous birthday, new model, and 2-year streaming anniversary stream. And I was like, how can we make this stupid and special? I'm going to try multiple variations of pilk.
Oh.
I'm going to mix milk with different drinks and see which one's the best. And I had things like Dr. Pepper, Fanta, Mountain Dew. Oh god, I can't remember the rest of them. I think I tried Monster. There was a Monster one. That's what it was. Mango flavored Monster. And that has pulp in it. And I didn't realize because it almost instantly curdled in the cup.
Because I was thinking, mango and milk, that you see some of that, and especially when it comes to like sherbets or ice creams, that's not an inherently incompatible set of flavors, but the pulp, that's what makes it not so
vile.
Good.
That was disgusting. My favorite one, there's a drink in the UK called Oasis, which is basically just like a still fruit juice mixed with water kind of drink. And I think I had like, I can't remember, I think it was like a summer fruits one, where it had like cherries and strawberries and some stuff mixed in. That was delicious. It just tasted like a milkshake. And that was my favorite one because it wasn't fizzy.
Yeah, it's really the carbonation, I think.
That's the worst part.
That with milk is the part that makes it just not great to begin with.
The issue was, that was like a 7 or 8 hour stream. I did that in the second hour at the very start of it. And I had to spend the rest of the stream with all of this pilk curdling inside me. Oh. I spent the rest of that stream with, I think we came up with a term for it called the pilk sweats, where I was just sat there just like, this is really uncomfortable.
What have I done?
I do not like this. And I had, when I went to bed afterwards, I was laying in bed just like, this is really bad. So I did not sleep very well.
Oh,
and
no.
I haven't had any pilk since.
Understandably
and this was in May,
so.
And it still comes up. Everyone calls me the pilk cat. And I'm like, that was
I've heard
7 months ago.
Having bad reactions to pilk, being like, oh gosh, this is terrible, just sort of gagging it. But you took it to the next level and actually, did
I just
all
wanted to
these different
see,
variation.
you know?
And obviously,
Yeah.
they were palatable enough for the most part. So the problem wasn't that, all right, you were particularly averse to Pilk at a conceptual level. It is because you had so much Pilk and so many different Pilks that it
Yeah.
went wrong. That I
Yeah.
had something somewhat similar for my first anniversary charity marathon in January. I did Bean Boozled. That, all right, it's an easy enough thing. Purchased a box, and it's pretty prolific. And I figured, all right, it's gonna taste bad. I'm happy to have things taste bad for charity, no problem. And I set the thing. I was like $20 a bean or something. I was like, whatever. And the first couple I had, all right, this is really, really nasty. And it was at about bean 10. Because, you can eat 10 jelly beans like nothing. That's super easy. And even if they don't taste super good, whatever, I expected it to be unpleasant. But my hat goes off to the engineers behind Bean Boozled, because they sought to create something terrible and disgusting, and they succeeded. It is easily the least pleasant eating experience I have ever had, and obviously it was engineered to do so, but it impressed me. There was the old bandage bean had this unnatural warmth to it that just, you could sort of feel it in your sinuses, and it was
I have
the
a
dirty
box of them
dishwater.
right here.
I'm so sorry.
I still have a box.
Well, it was the dirty dishwater one that I bit into and had to spit out because it was just vile. And I had a queue, effectively, of some 30 beans left to do, and it was around, it was probably being like 15-ish, that I felt my stomach starting to turn. I was like, that's just 15 jelly beans. Usually you can
They're
have
so
like a bag of jelly
bad.
beans, and that's going to be, 50-ish, and that's fine. But when I felt my stomach turning in what was going to be a 12-hour stream at hour 2 or 3, I said to Chad, I was like, all right, I need to stop, because I'm starting to feel bad. We have a long way to go, and this stream will become genuinely unfun if I keep doing this. So I sort of bargained with the folks that had already donated for beans and found alternate ways to, make good on
Do
that and
something
reward
else.
them. But I was like, I need to stop, because
think
this
that's a
will
wise
not end
choice.
well. And I still have a box of Bean Boozled unopened that I had bought too, because I was like, oh, they're cheap, whatever. I'll probably go through
Same.
a bunch. I will have it as a bit of a gag this year for a very high price point, because I tell folks, hey, if you're doing a thing, spicy ramen, sure, whatever. That's going to burn for a little bit. It'll work its way through. But I do not plan to have any Bean Boozled this year unless someone does a very exceedingly generous donation. It's going to be more of a gag than anything
That's why
else.
I still have this box, because I couldn't get through them. I had to throw away the one I opened because, they're going to go off.
Yeah.
But I've got this unopened box that's still wrapped up because
Mhm.
I actually, the same day I had those pilks was when I ate those.
Oof.
I had spoiled milk twice in a row, and I almost threw up. So I was like, this is vile.
I did combine them. That I had the spicy ramen, and I said, all right, if somebody donates $100, I will put 3 beans into the spicy ramen, and did the classic, chat orders you pizza, and they ordered me, it was pineapple, anchovies, and I think it was barbecue chicken, and I like pineapple on pizza, so got them there. The anchovies were a bit too salty, and the chicken, on its own, that's not a, that's not a very
I've had a very
natural
similar
set of
chat
toppings.
pizza.
But I could
I've had a very
have
similar
worse.
one.
But I did
Yeah.
again for, it was like $100 donation. All right, I'll put a bean on this pizza. And that was the limit of that. So, and at that point, I had still spaced them a good 3 hours apart between those particular ones. So my stomach had at least settled. But, yeah,
That's
like
rough.
I said, full respect, because some engineer had to look at combinations of chemicals to figure out what would create these visceral taste sensations. And to their credit, it worked. They're very unique. It's not just, oh, this tastes bad. They succeeded in actually creating even if it's not something you've ever tasted before, you know, you're not going to taste an old bandage, you're not going to taste dirty dishwater, but
you're going to recognize it.
They succeeded on creating what you've never tasted before, and you just can mentally
It's astonishing.
connect. Like, that's impressive from just a chemistry level.
I think the most impressive part is that they're actually edible, because you could very easily just put the actual thing into it. Like, you know, you could just, like, you know, take some dog bath, or like just like put some stuff into it, and like, yeah, that's gonna make the smell, but it's not gonna be edible. You need something that like makes that smell, but you can actually digest and is safe for human consumption. That's the really impressive part for me.
That must have been such a wild assignment for someone to get, because that's not something that you go to school for, to say, all right, you know, I'm gonna make this. That somewhere along the line, the folks behind Bean Boozled had to say, all right, we are going to seek out someone who can create this. And that someone was given the, you know, sort of business document that said, all right, you are being hired with the purpose of creating these tastes. Do the thing. And that they had to do that.
It was, I honestly, from what I understand of business development, is that this probably, just like my VTubing career, came about by accident, because what I reckon it was is that they were probably trying to develop
something
nice
else
flavored sweets,
and found something that didn't work.
Let's put something in here, and this smells like a dog poo or something, and they're like,
wait a minute,
but it's still safe to eat. What else can we do? And
I
that's
never
probably
thought of it from that angle.
I think that's probably how it came about. They're probably like just seeing what could be done as an experiment to see like what flavors they can make. If they're trying to make, I don't know, for instance, they're trying to make a milkshake flavor, but it tastes like spoiled milk. That's still a result.
Yeah,
but just not the one they were looking for. And they're like, oh, we could make this into a product. So I
could absolutely see that of just Bean Boozled not necessarily being a active development cycle, but just, all right, hey, everyone.
They're made by Jelly Belly, aren't they?
It's Jelly Belly, and just sort of a general note to the team of, hey, if while you are developing our new good flavors, you find one that is particularly rancid, just put it in this file. And when we get
save the recipe.
And when we get to 15 or however many particularly vile flavors, that we'll just use that, and boom, we've accidentally made a product over, you know, a year or two or however long, while trying to do other things anyways. And that it just ends up being, like you said, found knowledge, that every result of a test is still data and is going to end up being useful. In that, I now want to actually ask, I don't know who to ask, but like, that would be such an intriguing interview of its own, of whoever was either responsible for it or may have stumbled across those different things.
Maple makes a very good point in the chat there, that it's probably a byproduct of Harry Potter, because like in stories they have these magical magical jelly beans that have,
taking
like,
it to the logical conclusion. What if we made them even worse and just unbranded? That way we don't have to pay royalties. I can see that.
I think so. Anyway, that's the disgusting topics.
Yeah. Also, the Bandy, thank you for the follow. I suppose hopping off of pirates, seafaring, but also another interest that I discovered we have in common. I don't get to talk Magic the Gathering a ton with my guests. That for whatever reason, you know, there's a lot of VTubers who are into Yu-Gi-Oh! And that makes sense because it has the anime aesthetic, and there's a lot of the VTuber community and fandom that has its roots in anime fandom. And just for whatever reason, there isn't a huge overlap with Magic the Gathering, but I know that you do enjoy Magic, and that you had actually posted that you got a cute little note on one of your packages, and I had asked, hey, what was this for? And it was for your Admiral Beckett Brass Pirate Commander deck. So is Commander the primary way that you play Magic the Gathering, or are you into any other formats? Fair warning to those in chat, we're probably about to get into a fair bit of jargon, but I'll try and keep things accessible here.
Commander is the format that I started learning Magic with. It's still the one it's still probably my favorite, but it's not the only one I play, because I play I did a lot of Modern recently, but I've stopped. I play Standard on Arena, not so much in paper, because I don't want to buy decks that rotate out of standard, and then I just can't use them anymore. Pauper's really fun because it's only commons.
Yeah.
So it's really cheap to get a deck. You can buy a deck for like $50 or something, and that will just forever be legal unless like the cards get banned for whatever reason. There's not many bans.
Yeah, and usually bans won't completely obliterate a deck. That it might nerf it a fair bit, but at the same time,
it will still be functional. And even if it is banned, like you spent 2 cents on a copy of this card, it doesn't matter that much because you can just like, you're going to buy a new card instead. Like, oh no, I have to spend $1 on shipping. It's like, it's really cheap to get into. It's my favorite format. I've got like three decks for it at the moment. That's my favorite one. But I've got a lot of commander decks, and they are very fun. I've got wildly different power levels. The pirate deck is going to be super crap because it's mostly pirate flavor. It's not meant to be like strong win the game on turn 4. It's going to be like, I'm going to play this sword that attaches to pirates when they enter, and it's a common from 5 years ago that nobody plays anywhere.
Yeah,
because it's just a pirate sword.
Yeah, and pirate tribal in Magic the Gathering, for those who aren't super familiar, it's not one of those archetypes that is super supported and gets a whole bunch of things. It's not like your elves or warriors that
it got a lot of stuff recently, but again, it's not had like historically powerful stuff.
Yeah, that they were added in as their own distinct creature type in a set called Ixalan a couple years back, and that we're actually going to be going back to Ixalan later in 2023. So you're probably going to get a fair bit more to work with, but it's like you said, not that historic type
I've
of
got the
tribe.
deck here actually. I've got a card in it called Pirate Ship.
Yes.
The art on it is a pirate ship, but its creature type is human pirate. So the boat is a human.
Is the human, yeah, because that's a very old one when they had less standardization with their creature types. That I forget what set it's from, but that's like from the first 3-5 years of Magic.
Future Sight or Time Spiral, that one.
Oh, okay, maybe it's more recent than I thought then.
Oh no, that's still not recent. That's still like 2001.
Yeah, that is still pretty far back. But that's a particularly quirky one because at that point in time they didn't have, like I said, the creature type standardization, because now they actually have vehicles as a card type. So I'd imagine if it had been made today with current design standards and sensibilities, it would have just been a vehicle, because when they did
or an artifact creature.
Yeah, or something along those lines. I myself actually am a limited player, so I don't build any particular decks that I love to draft, and when it comes to pre-release time,
drafting.
that I'll do a sealed. But draft is the primary way that I play, because when I got into it, I had played Yu-Gi-Oh! For a time and just sort of fell out of it, and a friend was saying, hey, you should play Magic. I was like, well, I don't really want to buy decks and have to play things like that. And he was like, well, there's this thing called draft. And for those who aren't familiar, Magic the Gathering, the way that you draft is usually it's 8 people at a table and everybody has 3 booster packs. Everybody opens 1 booster pack, you look at the cards, you pick 1 card out of it, that is yours, you put it in front of you, and you pass to the left. That means you're getting a set of cards from your right. You then look at the cards, pick a card, pass, and keep doing that until you're out of cards, then repeat with packs 2 and 3. And the whole game within a game here is that Magic has the 5 colors, WUBRG, white, blue, black, red, green. And it might be the type of thing of pick 4 or 5. All right, there's no green cards. That's usually going to mean, all right, the folks over there are in green. You might not want to be in green, but there's this really good red card. Wow, why is nobody taking this red card yet? You might want to take that. So there's just that full strategy in real time, and the variation that it means I get to play a different deck every time I play, and I just then sell back any rares or winnings to fund my next draft. And it's been a cheap enough self-sustaining hobby in that way for me. But I still keep a general
the optimal way to play.
I still keep a general awareness of standard, a little bit of modern, just Commander naturally, because that's everything. And I love watching coverage of constructed play. I just have no interest in playing myself. I think I did one standard event borrowing a friend's deck once, played against a control player and said, oh yeah, this is why I don't do constructed.
I went to they have these events called Grand Prix.
Oh,
Oh,
yep,
they used
yep.
to. I don't know if they're still going on, but I went to the one in London in like 2018, I want to say 2017, something like that. It was a standard one. I still remember having like a board of like 20 insects in standard, and I swung all of them at my opponent, and they just went, settle the wreckage,
Oh,
which is exile all attacking
Yep.
creatures, and you get that
Mhm.
many basic lands from your deck onto the battlefield. And I was like, my opponent was at 3 life. I could have just swung with 3 creatures.
3 and
That was a very formative experience, learning that. But also, that was the Grand Prix I met the professor at, actually. For those of you
yes.
who know him from YouTube, he's one of the biggest Magic the Gathering content creators. I got his signature in a picture with him, and I still have a signed Saproling token from back then, which was quite nice.
Yes, and I know the professor is a very big proponent of Pauper, so
yes,
definitely shared interest there.
I'm also friends with Pleasant Kenobi, if you know him as well.
Yep.
One of the other big Magic creators. It sounds like I might be playing Commander with him on his stream at some point. Probably.
Oh, how
soon.
fun!
Between now and the end of January, apparently, at some point.
Definitely know.
I think that would be nice.
Know when that happens.
Yeah, it's like it sounds like from the way he wants to do this one is that people will have their webcams showing their faces as well as their playmat, because he specifically wants to do it this way so that I can have my VTubing model on screen as well and still show my paper Commander deck. So that would be really fun, because I have done a full cosplay of myself, so I do have all of this outfit available, but I want to be able to have, like, the correct glove and the wristband, so that when I could be like, oh, here's a card, this card, and I could be like, here's the correct outfit.
Yeah,
that's going to be good fun. I don't know when it's happening. I will announce it.
I have seen a couple of the photos you've posted of yourself at conventions in full Dandyfloss cosplay.
Well,
I think
it's only the one
cool
convention, I will say. I've only been to MCM London, and I don't
understandably,
know
like I said,
of any others at the moment.
Conventions haven't been back for very long because the past couple of years it hasn't been viable. But I'm super excited that you're comfortable enough to do that, but also that you've been able to actually create it, because that's an extra sort of step that there are some folks that are VTubers and are okay, showing their face, going to conventions and saying, hey, I'm here. If you want to meet up, that's fine. But it takes the extra level of commitment to recreate the full outfit.
I think the main reason I felt comfortable doing that was that I specifically designed this outfit in mind that I could wear a face mask when I go to conventions.
Smart.
And I wouldn't dox myself too badly, even though I took a selfie and showed it on Twitter. I was fine with that, because it was in costume. I thought that would be good fun. But I'm not sure if I want to show, I don't want to fully dox myself.
Yeah. Understandable.
I had a recent interview for Dexto magazine.
Yes.
The online one, about being trans and being a VTuber online. And one of the parts, I'm comfortable saying this here, because one of the parts I asked him to cut out was that I have previously, and I still currently do occasionally, had nightmares waking up at the middle of the night, being scared of being doxxed online. All of my details getting leaked, my address, my phone number, my email address, my family's names and things like that. I do still have nightmares about that, because I know what happens to people when they get targeted like that.
Yeah.
I mentioned that to him, and when he showed me what he was going to put in the article, I was like, could you remove that part? Because if I mention that there,
don't want to give people ideas.
It will give people ideas. The people that do it, they might be like, oh, this is a good person to go for, because we know they're actually quite vulnerable. So I did ask them to remove that.
Well, glad they were respectful enough to honor those wishes. That not every publication is going to, unfortunately, take the interviewee's wishes into consideration like that. But at the same time, I think it is a very natural and understandable fear that I think that's something that many content creators, even face cam streamers, have. And I think it's just something that sort of comes with the territory, that you're right, that there are some really terrible stories out there of folks that have been targeted, and it is unfortunately a risk, and there's a lot of things you can do to help protect yourself. But having a nightmare like that, I think, is a very reasonable type of thing to have.
Yeah, it's led me to take a lot of steps to like try and protect myself online. I don't know if you noticed the story over the summer about Keffals. She's a trans Twitch streamer that talks about a lot of political comments, a lot of political topics on Twitch and Twitter, and she became quite a target for people over the summer. People were mailing pizzas to her home that she hadn't ordered, and like people, they obviously found her address and all her details and everything. She lived in Canada, but people were still targeting her, so she moved somewhere else in Canada. They found her because of pictures she'd posted, like of the streets. They recognized where she was, so she fled the country and moved to Ireland for a few months. They found her there as well, and like the FBI got involved, and like the Irish police had to get involved because people were actually planning to, they were sending her death threats, and it was a really serious topic for a long time. Yeah, the hotel sheets, that was one of them. Yeah, she posted a picture of the inside of her hotel room, and people online found out which hotel it was because of the style of the sheets. So like, you really have to be careful with what you post online if you're targeted by this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate. It's
very scary, which is why I look after myself a lot online.
Like I said, a unfortunate reality that there are some bad actors out there that are very resourceful, and that in this day and age, even those subtle little things can end up being traced or dots connected, that it can be used for good in crime detection and helping make sure that dangerous people are able to be caught. But at the same time, the same information, the same technology can be exploited by people with less than noble intentions to cause this type of havoc.
There's a Bandy is in the chat there, is mentioning the thing about Shia LaBeouf. There was also one of a Japanese idol a few years back. She posted a selfie on, I can't remember what social media it was, but they used the reflections in her eyeball to figure out which street she took that picture from. And she got doxxed because of that, which is absolutely insane.
Absurd.
So you can't even be safe posting like a selfie against a black wall or like a brick wall outside, because people might look at reflections in your eyeball. So like you have to like lower the quality of the pictures you post for some. It's terrifying, the amount of things that people can do. So I've been fortunate enough to avoid that kind of attention, thankfully. I've stayed away from like controversial topics. I've never had like massive arguments online, or like I've not really tried to make myself a target. I'm just doing my own thing. I play video games, I make stupid things. That's about it. I'll occasionally mention that I'm trans on Twitter, and like that it gets some positive support, but like I am well aware of what happens when you're a large content creator and trans online. I tweeted it like yesterday or the day before, saying like, do I like being trans? Yes. Do I like being a content creator? Absolutely. Do I like the repercussions of being a trans visible content creator online? It's kind of strange. There's an Overwatch streamer that I follow called SK. She's like a top 500 Lucio player. Every time that she gets like 300 or 400 average viewers on her streams or something like that. So she does really well. However, the comments and replies in her YouTube videos and TikToks are full of transphobes, and she gets very targeted a lot. So I'm well aware of what happens if you grow as a visible trans person on the internet. It's something I'm having to learn to deal with, sadly.
And it's something that if you get big in Hollywood, that very similar circumstances, and just like I said, there's just unfortunately that small number of bad actors that have too much time on their hands and are still very smart and able to do a lot of really bad things. But I'm glad that you are being conscious of yourself and, taking all the steps to protect yourself and not letting that prevent you from enjoying being a content creator and enjoying being yourself. That there is a very distinct balance of safety, but also not letting the mere threat ruin everything. And in that own way, that if they prevent you from doing what you want to do and being a content creator, that's their goal, and that you are able to still persevere against that. So I'm very glad that you have found a healthy and safe way for you to continue doing what you enjoy.
It is. I will say it's one of the reasons why I'm still an indie VTuber. Like I have had multiple opportunities to apply for Hololive, Nichisanji, VShojo, and corporate VTubing. And do I want the kind of attention that kind of platform would give me?
It can be a double-edged sword, yeah.
It really is, especially in this community. There are a lot of supportive people, but at the same time, there's a very vocal minority of people against trans people like myself, and I don't know if I could deal with the kind of both positive and negative attention. I've been trans for 8 years now. I've been transitioning for a long time. I'm comfortable with myself. I know who I am. I don't require validation from other people. It's still nice, I will say, but at the same time, being bombarded with that many positive comments, it's thank you. I don't know how to deal with this much attention. It's very nice, I will say, but it does also come with the downsides of having people that are against kind of people like me. And I don't think I would belong in somewhere like Hololive, because they're all cis as far as I'm aware. Nijisanji recently fired their only visible trans member. So it's ooh, gosh. So it's kind of interesting. I'm allowed to say that I applied for Kawa Entertainment. They're quite a small VTubing agency.
Ah, yes, I'm familiar with the Kawa folks.
Another fun story about. Okay, would you like to hear another accidental story about Kawa, which is really funny?
Okay, how does this connect? Because I have my own sort of accidental Kawa story as well.
This one's spicy. So, I've been online for many years, and I was in some trans Discord servers, as support ones, and I made a few friends in there. And one of my friends was in there and got banned from the server for something. I can't remember exactly why. I don't remember it being that bad, but she just wasn't very comfortable in that server in any way. Cut forward a few years, I started streaming, and I was posting my Beat Saber videos on YouTube, and my friend from back then, at the time, was trying to get into VTubers. They discovered VTubers and was like, "Oh, I want to see what they're like," and came across my channel and my content, playing Beat Saber, streaming on Twitch, joined my Discord, follow my Twitter, but didn't recognize it was me. So she was literally talking with me in my Discord server, but didn't recognize who I was.
And did eventually, you recognize them, though?
No, because she was going by a different name. And she eventually went, "Hang on. Is this you from past few years?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "We know each other." So she fell into VTubing and discovered me by accident. And then a year later, she was like, we'd been talking for ages about VTubers and stuff. She's really into Nichisanji. I'm not so much. But eventually she was like, "I want to make a VTubing company of my own, because I feel like that's something I'd be able to do." And I helped her get in contact with some people. She figured I was helping discuss some plans with it. I applied for the first wave, but I was quite close to a Twitch partner, and her requirements for her members is that they have to stream mostly on YouTube, and she didn't want me to she didn't want to get in the way of me reaching partner on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
but like our branding is so similar. They're all about waves and oceans and like fish and crabs and stuff. Like they have this like
I hadn't even
let's
thought
make
of it from
waves
that
together.
particular angle.
And so like she was like, if you weren't so close to partner on Twitch and if you were streaming on YouTube, I would have signed you one in a heartbeat. And I'm like, oh. So unfortunate. So I've applied for the second wave, and just to see what happens. Now that I've hit
A lot
partner,
of people have applied for the second wave.
a lot have.
I
Yeah,
saw,
like over 2,000. Yeah.
And that's
So
super exciting because,
yeah,
you know, whenever there is a semi-corporate, you know, application opportunity, there's a lot of folks that jump on it. But those are usually for, you know, the big names that the middle and smaller sized proper corporations, and I'm not just talking groups of folks who, you know, have a loose affiliation, but somebody with an actual corporate structure that is actually a corporation, not just a group of affiliated content creators.
just friends.
Yeah, that I figured, all right, they're going to get a couple hundred applications. People are definitely going to be interested. I don't think that anyone, including the folks at Kawa, expected the response that they got.
I think what really helped was that they were like there were a lot of larger content creators, possibly myself included, that were talking about wanting to join them, and I've been like talking with them for a bunch, for quite a while.
Yeah, that they seem to have a very good reputation, and the way that I have my accidental connections there. The first wound up being Ellie and Booster, who do some of the news segments for them. That they were among my first guests as well. I think they were somewhere around episode 10, 15-ish. And they joined up with the folks at Kawa some 6-ish months ago as part of the initial wave of news drop, because Kawa is starting to move into different areas of content, not just the VTubing and the merch, but also trying to be sort of a resource hub and also a news hub. And Ellie and Booster had already been doing news segments of that sort, and they were brought on for that. But then later in the year, Kawa has been at a couple of conventions throughout the year, and I happened to be at a convention not knowing they were there. I was walking through the exhibit hall, looked down, and saw a Kawa business card on the floor. And just
on the floor,
on the floor, that someone had dropped it, and
no way.
And I recognized the logo at a glance. I was like, wait a minute, I know that because Ellie and Booster just joined up with them a couple months ago. Glanced at it and then thought, wait a minute, if this is here, check Twitter. Sure enough, you know, they posted saying, hey, we're at this convention, stop by and say hi. So I go over and I say hi. I introduce myself to the person running the booth because I had actually spoken with them very, very briefly for unrelated matters. And then as it happens, one of my friends who was at that convention was also there. And I had that moment of, wait a minute, you know them, they know you. And my friend, who I've known for many years, said, oh yeah, I've known them for 3 odd years. It's like, huh, small world. So wound up with that just from 2 different angles, not just,
accidentally finding them.
Accidentally finding them in person and realizing that one of the other folks that I knew there in person already knew them as well. So
that's great. They're doing really well for themselves. I'm really impressed with them. I love that they've got the resources available for people. So like they do things like clocks and schedules. I can't remember all the others. There's a few other things that they provide. And like a lot of these things that the CEO herself makes because she has a background in coding and this kind of stuff. So she managed to make a lot of that kind of stuff on her own, and she was like, I want to make a company that I can actually use to promote people with. And I was like, this is a really good idea. So I'm really impressed with what she's done with it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where they go from here. And I think, frankly, the biggest problem they have right now is that, like I said, I don't think they anticipated 2,500 plus applications, and that it's probably going to take them a while to work through everything, understandably so. That, the team there is, I think at this point, around a half dozen folks, and they're certainly not all full time. So hopefully they're able to get through that at a pace that is
Yeah.
not going to take a year, but also that is healthy for them, because, you do the math and say, all right, if each application takes 10 minutes, that, how many hours
gonna be a
and
long time.
days is that? And that it's going to be a while. And I hope they're able to find a healthy pace to do that.
I
And
think
at the same time,
one of the big reasons why they had so many applications is that, like, I've realized this for a long time, that there are obviously the big VTubing agencies, Hololive, Nijisanji. They require you to give up your old online persona, leave behind your old content, and they assign you a new one, and then that's what you use from then on. Whereas Kawa, they want you to keep what you've done before. They don't make you graduate and, like, have that traumatic experience in your community of, like, I've been streaming for years, I've been making content, I'm just going to abruptly stop, and then I'm not allowed to tell people that this is who I'm going to be. You have to find out by accident, and you're not allowed to acknowledge it.
And at the same time, it's just easier for them because they're not having to invest in new art, new models, new rigging, and having to bother with all that. That it's more convenient for them to say, no, just, you already have yours. We don't need to pay to get all this set up. Great, this is awesome.
You already have it. You know what you're doing. So I think that's quite nice. Keison got to keep her identity. That's because VShojo is an adoption agency like Kawa. So VShojo started because Iron Mouse, Zentreya, the initial group were just a group of friends, and Gunrun with them turned it into a business. And everyone else that they've brought on since then was already a streamer with that identity. So
with the exception of Nazuna.
Exception of Nazuna, because she, she was a weird one because she was.
It was a unique set of circumstances, but by and large,
it was a very strange one.
VShojo is an adoption agency, in that they very much take a similar approach to Kawa of, we're going to bring on folks who already have their branding. We're not going to touch that, and that we're going to let folks just be themselves. And it's entirely understandable why groups like Nijisanji and Hololive have their own proprietary stuff. It's, it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, like you were saying, it's sad to have to give up something that you've built up, and to have to go away and not be able to acknowledge all the incredible things that you've done. Because if you've made it to Hololive and Nijisanji, you've done something right, that you have been able to, succeed in a lot of other ways and have things that you should be proud of. And while I understand, for a variety of reasons, some of them even being safety, that they want their folks to have unique standalone branding, that I think there is more than enough room for both types of agencies, and I'm glad that both are able to exist, and that we've seen the proof of concept of both.
I'm a little concerned that Kawa already does have a captain, but he's a paintball captain, not like, not a ship captain.
Yeah,
he's
not a
captain
nautical
of a team.
captain.
So, like, if I join, there'll be two captains, which is a little bit difficult, but I'm sure it'll work out.
I'm sure they will be able to overcome.
Maybe I could get a promotion and become an admiral or something.
Yes, Admiral Dandyfloss. There we go.
Yes, there we go. I'd have to get my own fleet, though, at that point. An admiral is basically a captain of multiple ships, and I've only got the one, so we'll see what happens.
Of all the things to worry about, I think that's one that can be easily addressed if you end up looking to cross that particular bridge.
Yeah. I do still like being indie, though, I will say. I've done everything on my own. I try to work with friends and people who know what they're doing. I have had some management advice. So, like, I've not done everything on my own. Last year, before I left my job, I got like I had a couple months of consulting to try and decide whether this is something I should do. And we looked over, like, statistics and, like, things that work, and whether this is something that's viable. So it is something that I did take seriously at the time. I still do. I have to sort out, taxes and everything. It's a real job. It's quite stressful. So it's the easiest part of streaming is the streaming, because you've done all the setup and work beforehand, and then you do all the work to make it look effortless on stream. The amount of stuff I've had to do behind the scenes, and just like I don't obviously a lot of it has been done previously, and I don't have to improve on it. But it's like a gradual accumulation. You're kind of like, okay, maybe I need to fix this thing up. I'm gonna need to work on this today.
Incremental. Usually, it's not going to be a total overhaul. That some folks will do that if they get a new model or want to do a re-debut. That they will do a top-down redesign of everything. But for the most part, that's just going to be all right. A little tweak here, a little change there. VTuber Talk has not changed much in the almost 2 years that I've gotten a logo. I've done a bit of resizing and addition of on-screen chat box, some resizing of the bottom bar and formatting, but I very much designed VTuber Talk as a just fun, casual side project. The channel isn't monetized by choice, and a lot of this is just cardboard and duct tape, very simple assets. And
people don't realize how much duct tape is involved with VTubing. There's streaming; it's all just held together with string. It's so delicate.
Unfortunately, just it's a talk show that I don't need bells and whistles, and the fact that I don't have a model myself, again by choice, it has kept things very low maintenance, and I'm still making small adjustments here and there, and might do a broader overhaul at some point, but. Fortunately, the formula I've found works, and like I said, just due to the nature of content that I do, I don't really need to end up putting in any of the extra legwork, and that I think simplicity actually works in my favor.
Yeah, if it's the aesthetic you're going for, that's what you want. I don't have like an overlay bar on my streams. I just have the game and then myself. Or I have the background behind me. Sometimes I'll like minimize the game slightly so you can see a bit of the background, but I don't go with like there's a dedicated chat bar here, or there's no dedicated area for follows up here or something. I just have it all on top of the game. Those who have been at my streams for a long time may have seen a lot of changes specifically to the chat box. I've gone through dozens of styles for the chat box because I'm never satisfied. I can never settle on one. I'm like, oh, this is fine, and then I'll watch back the videos and be like, I can't read that, or I'll be like, oh, that's really distracting, or it's blocking something. I need something that's transparent, or I prefer it on the other side. And the simple act of trying to have a text-aligned box that goes from a flat edge on one side and then pokes out the other way, mirroring it so the flat edge is on one side and comes out the other way, is actually really complicated. And I am not good enough at HTML and CSS to figure this out. It is actually surprisingly complicated, and I've had to go through so many people to help me fix this stuff. And I am so dumb at this, and I'm incredibly thankful at everyone who knows what they're doing. Honestly, they are lifesavers. I can never figure this stuff out, and everyone who knows what they're doing is a lifesaver, and I really appreciate it. Mark helped me with one, yeah. The one I currently have is a pre-made one I bought from Kofi, I think it was. I've gone through so many of them, and it's ridiculous. Marinthue in the chat there as well has helped me with a few other things. One of my Elden Ring playthroughs, my previous one, not the one I'm currently doing, but my previous one. It was a randomizer in the sense that I had every 10 minutes there was a vote in the chat that would present 4 options of any item in the game, and chat could vote on one of those, and I would have to cheat in the one that won, and I'd have to use that if it won the vote. So Marinthue came up with the voting system so that you can feed this website, this like tool page, a huge list of items, set some parameters, and it would run on its own without intervention. And it's
cool.
Really helpful. It's fantastic. I really want to do another one. I just wish I could use it for more games, because there's not enough games that let you cheat anything in at any time. Maybe I could do like a Dark Souls one or something. That could be fun.
Sorry, Marinth. I have links blocked just, to avoid bots and such. So sorry, that link did get squashed.
I do the same. Don't worry. The only links I allow in my Twitch chat are clips, so that people can share clips of things that happen in my stream.
Yeah, but I do know that you play Elden Ring, that you were saying to me earlier, actually, that it was your Game of the Year and actually did win the Game Award for Game of the Year about a week ago.
Yeah,
and
my
you've been doing a
personal
lot
Game of the Year. I've got almost 500 hours in it now, I want to say. Let's have a look, actually.
But then you've done a lot of challenge runs.
444 hours. I'm on my 8th playthrough, and this is my first actual randomizer, so it's changed all the items and enemies.
And I've seen randomizer runs, but I love that you've added this extra layer of that you have the automated poll, so you get that interactivity. And that, you know, I've seen different types of crowd control. Sometimes it's native to the game, like Vampire Survivors has added that in the past couple months. And there's a couple other games that have it built in or hacked in by third parties, but that you've actually sort of stood up your own proprietary randomizer with the help of Mark Law, and that you're able to then have this. Marantu, and that it's able to actually just generate. All right, you have this list. Take 4, get the vote, and then whatever is voted in, that you hack that in and have that as part of your build. That I don't think I've heard of anybody doing something quite like that. And
I hadn't seen anyone do it either.
I hope you're able to then repurpose that, because I think that is a broad enough concept that you can do that with, you know, basically any Souls game, and then with a couple of slight adjustments, you could use it in different games. Just the idea of, okay, at time interval, select random thing for chat to vote on, that then gets incorporated to the game, either if it's, you know, an item or some change. You know, like you could probably do that with Pokemon Nuzlocke to some extent of, all right, you know, every 10 minutes or something, 4 Pokemon are spat out, and that chat votes. One of those 4 Pokemon is going to be added to your party, and you could either say the one that gets kicked off is random or voted on as well. There's any number of ways you could implement this type of interactive system along with randomness.
That's what I want to do, really. I was inspired, obviously, by crowd control. I did a crowd control Subnautica run. I'm still going through it. It's taking a long time because crowd control Subnautica is really tough when people can teleport you to the surface constantly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do that with Elden Ring because I knew there's randomizers and crowd controls for Dark Souls. But because Elden Ring's relatively recent, it doesn't have crowd control features yet. So I'm
sure they'll get there.
approached Marantu and said, like, is there something that could be possible? I think it was the other way around. I think I tweeted about it, and I think Marantu offered that it might be something that he can do. So once there's real crowd control, I will absolutely do an Elden Ring playthrough of that, so that you guys can spawn in something new in the middle of a fight or something, or you can change my weapon while I'm fighting. Something like that would be really funny. But in the meantime, this is a really nice way of getting to do it. There was so many memes spawned from it. It was like, Dandy, it's 4 p.m, time for your daily Dectus medallion left, because I had 3 of those given to me. There were over 1,500 items in the list I put into it. And I got given 3 Dectus medallion lefts. You only need one of them, and you need the other half. I kept being given the same half instead of the other one I need.
So, as someone who has not played Elden Ring, that I've obviously seen a lot of streams, but I don't know all the items. So, Dectus medallion left. Is this a quest item that you need?
It's like a key item. You need 2 halves of it to go up this lift to reach a new area. If you have one half but not the other, you can't go up it yet. So you have to explore the world to try and find them. But in this randomizer, it was any item in the game.
A single half and never the other.
Multiple times. I did remove the crafting items from the list though, and when I started, I didn't have armor in the list, which was stupid. So eventually I fixed that. I forgot to add it in for some reason. But I did fix that. I got rid of the crafting items because it was like, oh, it's not very rewarding, because if you're presented with a list that has a sword and 3 berry items, you're gonna go with the sword. It's not like
Yeah, that it's not much of a fun choice at that point. It has to be
exactly.
at least a couple of compelling options.
So you need to go for something like, oh, am I going to give her this shield, or am I going to give her this Ash of War? This gives her a new, really cool ability, or you're going to go with a new summon, or something really cool. It was very interesting.
What is the
my
proportion?
Chat, my chat did go with the berries a lot.
What's the proportion of times that you get these 4 items? How often do they pick, the best, most powerful item for you versus the one that is useless, actively bad, or otherwise gimmicky?
I think in my experience, I'd look at the votes and I'd say, I would personally be like, oh, this is a really good one. I like that one. And then chat would all vote for that.
Okay, so they can be influenced.
I did have, I think I had an influence, but there were also people actively in the chat saying, don't give her the good one, go for this crap one. Or like, give her this legitimate pile of poo, because you can get that in Elden Ring. So I think a few times I was given like, gold-tinged excrement, which is really funny. But yeah, most of the time chat would give me the better thing because they want to see me do something cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do something. I want to actually, progress the game, be able to beat it. So when the Dectus Medallion items came up, I'd be like, yes, go with that right now. If you don't vote for that, I will scream because I need that right now to actually go to the next part of the game.
Yeah, someday you'll get Dectus Medallion right.
Yes.
Someday.
There are also things like, there's things called somber or regular smithing stones, which are items that you apply to your weapon that makes them stronger. If you don't have those, and you don't upgrade your weapon, you don't do as much damage, even if you're upgrading your own statistics, your own levels. Even if you don't upgrade your weapon, it doesn't do as much damage still. So for a lot of the game, I couldn't level it up further because those items were in the votes. There are resources that if you provide, there's something called a bell bearing, which I don't know why they're called that still, but it's an item where if you give it to the main shop, it gives you new things that you can buy. And there are specific bell bearings that let you buy smithing stones. You can buy an unlimited number of these upgrade materials. So whenever we saw one of those in the votes, people would vote for that, thankfully, so that I could upgrade my weapon, or any other weapon I got. Because if I was... We eventually decided that if I was given a new weapon, it would be unupgraded initially, because when you cheat it in, it's unupgraded and it's a brand new one. To make sure that I can actually still do damage, and those previous smithing stones that have been voted in through the chat, to make sure that that wasn't wasted, I would upgrade that weapon to the highest level I can currently upgrade to. So if I was given a great sword that I can upgrade to +7, if I'm given a new weapon, I can cheat in the items to give me
get it to that level. That way you're not
+7.
just otherwise you're going to get stuck because you're going to not be able to actually get things to actually do damage and progress. So it makes sense that you just assign it to whatever the highest value is you have currently, and that becomes
unlocked.
that you're unlocking a new baseline every time.
Because at any point in the run, I could cheat in anything I wanted, because the way I did it was I used a cheat engine program. It's like this tiny little window on my computer. I can type in any item, I can search it, and it says give any number. I did accidentally give myself 99 of a couple of things by accident because I left the number, which is kind of funny, but it didn't impact that much. But I can just give myself anything at any point, but I restricted myself to what was voted on by chat. So if they voted on a somber smithing stone 8, that was now my new maximum, and I could, if I found the bell bearing that gave me the smithing stones inside it that got me to that next level, that would be my new next level. So things like that. It was a little bit of like forethought to make sure, like, okay, this is actually how this works. It got a little bit complicated, but it was really funny. There were multiple times where I'd like upgrade my weapon. This is a really good weapon. I like this, and then chat's like, oh, here's a weapon that you don't have the stats for. It like, I was building a strength build so that I can hold big weapons that chat might give me. Oh, here's a staff. Oh,
Oh, how
I
nice.
can't cast spells with this. So like, I was like, oh, it was still really fun. Now I've got a randomizer where it's like, as I'm playing, I'm given random stuff and I can choose to use it or not. My next playthrough, I do want to do another randomizer, but I'm going to be doing a use what you get randomizer. So if I find a new weapon out there, I have to use that.
Just
And I have to
automatically
upgrade
switch
it.
every time
I just
there's something
automatically
new.
switch it. If I like a new piece of armor or a shield or something, and I have to wear it or use it
Until
I
find
find
another
something
one.
new to replace it.
Mhm.
I've seen playthroughs of this where the player eventually picks up so many heavy pieces of equipment that they become over encumbered and they can no longer dodge.
Oh, so are you not allowed to
or
drop
sprint.
things?
There are
no, that
you
get
have
it.
to wear it. You have to use it. So
Or rather,
there
I mean,
are
so
there's a weight system in the game where like
Yeah.
things in your inventory don't contribute to your weight, but the things that you're
Oh,
wearing
okay.
and holding do. So your weapon, your shield, your armor pieces all have a weight value.
Yeah, and that you can get
And-
over encumbered. Yeah, I
Yes.
was thinking
So with your stats,
initially.
you have like a maximum, and if you go
Yeah.
over that maximum, you can no longer dodge. And it looks like a lot of fun. I really want to do one of these. And
Yeah,
there's a few other randomizers with there's now a fog wall randomizer where when you go into a boss room, usually the first time it's just you just walk in, but the second time, like subsequent times, there's a fog wall. It's just a big wall of fog.
That classic Souls fog wall
experience where you walk in, you can't see, and then you're suddenly in the room and you're like, oh, there's the boss. There's now a randomizer mod for those where if you walk through one, you'll be sent to a different area. You'll be sent to a different boss room, and you have to fight that boss instead. And then when you beat them, you're now in this new area.
Yep,
That's just where you are. So, like, if you walk through a starting boss in Limgrave, you could walk out facing the Elden Beast in the final boss arena, and you have to work your way back from the game there. It's like, this sounds mind-blowing. I really want to try one of those with an actual randomizer run, and I don't know if it's possible because you need certain items to progress the game.
Yeah, that you can end up in just a soft lock situation potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen that type of randomizer done with Pokemon games where every door in the game is randomized. So you will walk into a Pokemon Center and be spat out in a gym, or you'll walk into a random house in one city and walk into a house in a randomly different city. But in those cases, the values and placements of all the doors are preserved, so it becomes a labyrinth, and that you note as you go, all right, this door leads here, that door leads there.
How do I get to where?
Yeah. That it's not every time you enter a door that it is re-rolled, but that it is set in the seed from the beginning, and you have to discover the different pathways and find your way to the end of the game. But it sounds like in this case, that since it's the fog walls, and correct me if I'm wrong, that after you beat the boss, the fog wall is no longer there. So you are just there. This is where you are now. You cannot backtrack.
Some bosses, they'll have a cutscene afterwards, after you defeat them, and then you'll move to a new place. So, like, when you defeat Malekith, you're now put into Lanedale City of Ash, which is after you've burned the tree. And you can get locked there because you may not have a grace anywhere else to teleport to. So you could get locked, and I'm looking into how this might work. But it could be really funny, I think, and I'd really like to try it because there are hundreds of boss arenas in the game. A lot of them are duplicates of the same boss. So, like, you might encounter multiple Falling Star Beasts or multiple, I don't know, Leonin Misbegottens or something. You might encounter multiple of the same ones, but they're in catacombs, caves, and dungeons. So even if you get locked in an area, you might still be able to escape it by going into one of these, finding the fog wall in there, and then being teleported somewhere else that you need to get to. So I think it might still work. I'll need to look into it.
Yeah, I think you would just want to have
after this one.
Sort of a fail-safe that go with that initial concept, but have something where, all right, if you've realized that you're in a situation where you can't go backwards and there are no other accessible fog walls, that you can just sort of default back to either the last location before that other fog wall and no longer have that fog wall and just say, all right, that was the last save point, or figure out some other scenario wherein if you hit that soft lock that you can do some type of reversion and not have the entire run scrapped.
I did a crafted item run where I was only allowed to... The only source of damage I could deal was something that I'd crafted myself. And I learned how to make save states so that I could collect a lot of crafting materials, save the game, make a backup of it, and then face the boss. Because if I face the boss, lose, all the items I used against that boss, I've lost.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to throw pots at them or throw some darts at them, those are things I don't have access to again. And I don't want the entire run to just be me collecting items.
Yeah, that's not going to be a fun content experience for you as the one having to do it, or for a viewer.
A lot of it was because I'd spend like 30 minutes collecting, I don't know, like some berries or something, or some fireflies, or butterflies. So like I'd spend a while collecting those and then make a save state so that I don't have to do it again. That was just the easiest thing to do. I didn't want to have to do it multiple times.
That makes sense. Are Souls-like games as a whole a genre that you've enjoyed for a while, or was Elden Ring one of your first forays into that?
Well, I actually discovered them this year, and I had to be convinced to play Dark Souls 3 by my moderators. I think if Norman's still in the chat there, he's been a very big advocate for getting into certain games this year. Dark Souls 3 was one that I had to be convinced to play, and I loved it. I really liked it. I beat it just before Elden Ring came out, and I fell in love with Elden Ring even more. I don't think I would have played it if I hadn't played Dark Souls 3. I think it would have been a bit too intimidating for me. There's been a few games like this where like my moderators will be like, this is a game I know you'll love. Like Subnautica was one of those. I have I had a big fear of there's a fear called submechanophobia, I think it is. And it's the fear of submerged man-made things or large structures underwater. So that could be like sunken ships, sunken planes, like wreckages just underwater. But for me, it would also include things like the sides of icebergs underwater, like this huge wall that feels like it shouldn't be there, and it's really uncomfortable. Or just like, I feel like this is another one that a lot of people would relate to, is like the fear of being alone in the water but not knowing what's below you. Many times I've had people comment that this is a very ironic fear to have as a ship captain that I don't like. I have a fear of being underwater. There's a reason I'm on a boat rather than a submarine, because I'm on the water, I'm not under it. So I had to be convinced quite hard to play Subnautica, which is a game all about
Subnautica is not
being
going to be a
underwater.
fun time.
Exploring sunken wreckages with fish that you can't see and monsters and things you have to fight while underwater in a really cramped space. My first playthrough of it was a nightmare. I hated it. It was terrifying. But as I got towards the end of it, I looked back on things I had done and achieved, and I was like, that wasn't that bad, actually. Compared to what I'm going against right now, I can deal with what I was initially scared of. So, like, as you play it further and further, you go really deep underground and underwater. And you have to do these shallower areas much more often because you need the resources there, and that's where your base is. But when you're starting the game, that shallow area is terrifying. You're like, what is this? I don't recognize this. That's really scary, but you get used to it. It's exposure therapy that is a real thing.
Gradually,
people do that for their phobias.
And that it literally and figuratively takes you deeper over time. Exactly.
And you get used to it. And the more you play it, the more you realize how fun it is. I found. I played through Subnautica 1 and then Subnautica Below Zero, which is the sequel. and then I've now got the Subnautica crowd control run I'm still going through, and it's really helped me get over my fear of being underwater. Like, I think if I was still to go out there onto the ocean in real life and be dealing with these kinds of things, I think I'd still be very uncomfortable with it.
There's a distinct
but I can at least deal with it in the
between doing
game.
it virtually, yeah. And
Yeah.
that, you know, obviously, if you have a phobia, it's still very understandable and natural to not want to experience that, even virtually. But
Yes.
at the same time, if you're looking to get over that particular phobia, that doing that virtually first seems like a much easier hurdle and probably just a healthier first way to approach it anyways.
Yeah, like it's one of the big distinctions I've made between horror games, playing them on PC and playing them in VR. Totally different experiences. Because when you're playing on a PC, your screen is there. It's a finite space.
Yeah.
It's taking up a small portion of your field of view. You can see everything else around you. You know it's not real. But in virtual reality,
the point is to
everything's around
that.
you. You have like you're completely immersed. You're surrounded by it. Everywhere you look, it's going to be there. You can't just turn away and no longer see it. It's still going to be there. It's going to feel like you're embedded in it. And so I've played a couple of horror games on my stream, not very many, but one of them I tried to play a few years back was Five Nights at Freddy's VR. I had a panic attack and trembled and fell to the floor and stopped the stream. It was the worst thing I'd ever experienced, and I'm never going to be streaming that again because I couldn't handle it again. And it's why I have a huge aversion to playing horror games on my stream, because I just don't want to have that kind of experience again. Even if it's just like a regular desktop horror game, I'm like, I probably won't play this because I don't think I'll enjoy it. It's one of the reasons why I didn't want to play Subnautica in the first place, because I was like, if it's really that bad, I don't really want to do it. So it's quite a different experience depending on how you play these games.
And that's understandable. I'm not a horror person. I don't like horror movies. I don't like horror games. That I understand why some people love them. It's just I do not enjoy that type of visceral fear, stress induction in my free time. That is not a sensation that I particularly enjoy experiencing. And I understand that for some people it's an adrenaline rush and that it's super exciting. And I'm able to fully delineate the reality versus fantasy of it all. And that I never have an issue of, after watching a horror movie, if I see one of, worrying about it being real or having nightmares like that. But it's just in the moment that, naturally that is media that is designed to elicit a emotional response. And even if it's in the moment, even if I understand this is not real, it's just, this is not a pleasant experience or sensation for me. And it's one that I generally will choose to not have.
Exactly. I prefer having fun or challenges on my stream. I don't like being stressed or scared.
And there's so many other options, so many things that you do enjoy that you can do on stream, that you are spoiled for choice. That, if this small segment of games and media is not to your taste, it's not a terrible loss for you. That you don't need that you can just do other things that you are going to enjoy, and that's just going to be better.
Yeah, exactly. I think from what I can tell from my viewers and my community, that they prefer seeing me have fun to me being stressed and upset. Because
as most will, that that's going to be more entertaining. And that even if some chats sort of, some content creators lean into either reaction stuff or being quote unquote bullied by their chat, and that they have a actually healthy relationship with their chat of just fun, consensual, like I said, playful antagonism. But for the most part, the audience wants to see the streamer having a positive time in one way or another, because that's just going to be more fun to watch, and that's going to mean that they're going to be able to make better content because, well, unsurprisingly, folks do better when they are having fun.
Yep. There's I don't want to name names, but there's a streamer I watch who occasionally has like they're primarily an Overwatch streamer, and they'll occasionally have people in their team get angry at them, or just like, you know, that's just the online experience. But they, by being a visible female streamer in Overwatch, they get a lot of specific gender-related threats. And they've been streaming for a long time that it no longer upsets them, it just angers them. And they will direct that anger back while live in the chat or voice chat. And sometimes the people from their team or the opposite team will find their streams and come into their chat and direct the negativity back while live. And the streamer doesn't ban them. And they will just keep having this back and forth while live, this argument. And I'm like,
I suppose it's a content choice that
it's a very definitive choice, because what it happened while I was there, like, she was having this argument while live, and I was like, just ban them, just move on. You don't, your time is worth more than this, and your viewers aren't gonna be wanting to see you like this. And she doesn't ban people herself. She relies on moderators to do it. And she didn't have a moderator in the chat at the time, so this person was just hurling insults in the chat. And she was just throwing them back at this person. They were just having this huge argument. And I genuinely just closed the stream and just like, this is not what I'm here for. I'm here to have fun, be entertained, not have to, like, you know, just have these personal arguments. Like, it blows my mind that people would do that. And I try to make my streams a safe place, and like a safe, comfortable place. I have wonderful moderators that delete negative comments and will freely ban people if they break my rules or if they know that they wouldn't fit in with my stream. And I'm happy for them to do that. I will ban people myself as well, because I know that they don't. Well, I would ban people, but my moderators get there before me. So it's like, they are fantastic, and I love my moderation team. They know I do. And I don't get why people would just let their emotions get in their way while live.
Yeah, like I said, a choice, not one that I'd make, but you know, at least folks are able to make that choice, and you know, some people, I suppose, enjoy seeing that back and forth, and well, that's the option that you have as a streamer and also as a viewer.
Yeah, so I took my attention elsewhere, I will say. So I don't tend to fall into arguments like that. If something happens on stream, I'll just laugh it off and move on to the next thing.
A bit of a diversion, but we were talking earlier, and you mentioned to me a series called Delicious in Dungeon, and I don't know if there was going to be a way for me to figure out a more natural transition into this topic, so I'm just going to... That's
fine. Let's move on from the bad topic to my favorite topic currently. So, my community is probably sick of me talking about it.
Well, they're going to have to put up with it, because I am a big anime watcher. That's what I do with a lot of my free time when I'm not watching VTubers. And don't read a ton of manga. I just enjoy, you know, the motion, sound, and everything of anime. I read manga every so often, but this is one that you mentioned that, like you said, is one of your favorite things right now, and that it's actually being adapted at some point by Studio Trigger. For those who aren't familiar, Studio Trigger is the company that did Kill la Kill most recently. They did Cyberpunk Edgerunners way back in the day. A previous iteration of the company was called Gainax. They did Gurren Lagann. They have a very distinctive art style, and they do incredibly good stuff. So anytime I see Studio Trigger attached to a production, that already is going to probably get me in the door for at least an episode just to see what it is. But apparently this is something good. So what is Delicious in Dungeon?
So it is a manga series that's been out, I think like 6 or 7 years now at this point. Where the basic premise of it is that it's a universe where dungeons and magic and different races like elves and dwarves, that all kind of thing exists. It's a fantasy series where you're following this party of adventurers. The party leader, his name is Laius. He goes into the dungeon. His sister is in the team, and it starts off with them fighting a red dragon and getting defeated by the red dragon. And his sister gets eaten by the dragon. Now, in this world, if you die while inside the dungeon, you can be revived. You can be resurrected. Everyone knows this. If there is somebody who is competent with magic and they know how to cast the spells, they can revive you because your soul is still attached to your body.
Now, to be clear, this is not an isekai. This is not a stuck in a video game situation. This is just, it is proper fantasy.
It is just the world.
This is
just
a
the world
law
of
of
how
nature, and
yes.
it is an accepted law of nature.
Yes. But it's specifically confined to the dungeon. If you die outside of the dungeon, you will die.
You are dead.
You can't be resurrected. So they die in the dungeon. They get resurrected and taken back to the surface. I think they get taken near the surface, then get resurrected, and then just dumped outside, because the story starts with them outside, waking up after being killed, and they're like, oh, "We need to go back. We need to go back and get Farlin," who is his sister's name. A couple of the party members leave because of they're like, "We can't do this. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. I'm not going to risk my life to go back in because she died really far into the dungeon." But a few of them, Laius and two of the others, they decide to go back in, and they're like, "Okay, we don't have supplies. We don't have money. The way that we're going to do this, we are going to eat monsters. We are going to cook and eat monsters in the dungeon." And initially, only Laius is down for this. He's obsessed with monsters, and the others are like, "I guess we have to do this because we have no other choice because we want to save Farlin." And they meet another party member who's been living in the dungeon for 10 years, and he's been living off monsters, and they learn how to cook these fantastic meals out of monsters. It's a fascinating concept that they're just like, okay, how do we cook and eat slime or living armor or ghosts or things like this? There's so many fascinating things that they do with them, and it will show you how they prepare the monsters, how they're like how the monster lives. And the thing that one of my friends is in the chat there, Maple, currently. Hi, Maple. One of the things that they said that really hooked them is that the first meal they cook is a living mushroom. And while they're cooking the living mushroom, they're like, "Oh, it's harder to slice it horizontally, but it's easy to slice it vertically because that's the way that the mushroom grows. It's like a tree almost.
Yeah, that you have the grain of wood.
Yeah, but it's a mushroom." And so they're like, "We can apply this knowledge from cooking and preparing this food, this thing, to fighting them. If we're facing living mushrooms in the future,
swing your sword
slice
this way
them from the top rather than sideways, because it's quicker and easier to get through from the top than from the side." And it's like the entire series is things like this. They're like, we are going to need to cook, I don't know, for instance, we're going to cook, oh gosh, I don't know, we're out of food, so we're going to eat this, a thing called a bicorn, which is like a unicorn, except it has two horns on the head, rather than one on the front. So they're like trying to cook and prepare this bicorn, and like they figure out things about it and on the way, and it's fascinating. My favorite chapter is when they encounter the succubi, and they're not the typical kind of succubi that you would think. I don't want to spoil it because you have to read it to really appreciate it. They are not the typical succubi that you hear in tales about, like demons.
Here.
Something completely different about them that I would never have thought of, and it's something I've only ever seen in this world. And it's really fun, and the way that they go about it, it's so good. And I cannot wait to see the series animated, because this story has lived in my brain for years. I've read it at least like a dozen times at this point. I think I have all the books. I think I'm missing one or two of the latest ones. But I've read the fan translations. I've read the official translations, and like there's differences between those. The main bad person, the person that runs the dungeon, in the fan translation they're called Thistle with a TH, And in the official translation, they're called Sissel with an S. And they also get the gender wrong. In the fan translation, there are no, at least in the original Japanese, there are no gendered pronouns for this bad person until like a dozen chapters into the story. So in the fan translation, they use they them as the pronouns for this dungeon master. And once they finally find out, like once there's an explicit reference to the gender of that person, they switch over to using he him. Now in the official translations, I've noticed they start using she her.
Oh.
No, they get it wrong because they start using she her, and then there's a point in the story where Laius and his party are talking to somebody who knows the main person, and that person refers to the baddie as he him, and then there's a small line in that's been added because of the translation that said, "Oh, we got that wrong because we were told the wrong information. We couldn't tell because the bad person's an elf." They all look very feminine by default in this world, so it's quite hard to tell. And it's and then after that they all switch to using he him. So again, because there's no explicit gendering of the bad guy at the start of the story, both versions get the gender wrong, and it's so funny to me.
That's
but
interesting.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they switch over and they start being respectful and using the right one.
Yeah, that in the end, when they find out and are told, no, this is gender, it's like, oh, okay, and we shift. And then
that's it.
Initially, I was thinking, all right, I have seen plenty of official translations of non-binary characters that will use a binary pronoun just for whatever reason. So I thought that was where that story was going, or that there was going to be, that they weren't sure at first, and that they just used he, him from the get-go by default, and that, it was correct and whatnot, but that they shouldn't have necessarily assumed at the beginning, but that it is actually a plot point where it is not known, and how it is wrong is different in the fan translation versus the official, but you still have that point in the story where there is the correction, and that the correction is accepted and you move on.
The correction doesn't actually happen in the translation, because I think what happens is the assumption in Japanese is that I don't know how Japanese gendered pronouns work or anything, but my assumption is that like everyone just assumes the gender of that person from the tone or the context, and they only in the translations there's no correction of that. There's no acknowledgement that this is now this is the new pronouns we're going to start using. There's no acknowledgement of that. There's just a very explicit switch where you notice there are translator notes at the end of each chapter where it says like they give you context for reasons why things happen. There were fan translation notes, and there's official translator notes in the books as well. In the fan ones, it says, up to this point, we've been using they, them because we have no pronouns. And at this page, this single fairy, tiny character that's not even major to the story, refers to the bad person as a guy. And that's when they finally had some confirmation of the gender of the bad guy. And it's like, it's so funny. But in the official translation, there's no notice of that. There's no, in the translator notes, there's no mention of that because they added it into the dialogue. Moment. Yeah. I don't know what was changed. I need to like find that page and see what was changed and added in there. But it's quite interesting that they actually wrote that into the English translation of the story. That there's actually acknowledgement here that people didn't actually know the gender of the Mad Sorcerer, which was in the fan translation they're called the Mad Sorcerer, but in the books, hang on, I've got them here. Hang on, I can't remember what they're called in this one. It's some other term and it's way more lame. It's not as the lunatic magician.
The lunatic
That's the
magician.
one.
Okay, that's
Mad Sorcerer is such a good title.
Yeah.
but then they get changed to lunatic magician, and it's so much more.
That's
lame.
a very distinct choice. Lunatic is not a terribly common word in the English language, and I don't
Not at
care
all.
if you're from the US or England or wherever. It's a word, and most people are going to know what it means, but it's just not a very common one.
It's like a next step up from mad. Yeah, mad is like you expect them to have some kind of sanity, but they're just like a bit eccentric. Lunatic is like somebody that should be locked up and just like completely like not safe for anything. And it's like that's quite an escalation. And also being changed from sorcerer to magician also
I think that's a bit of a downgrade
from that, I think, as well.
I think sorcerer is much more intimidating.
Yeah. Sorcerer implies that they've been studying it for years. They're well educated. They know exactly what they're doing, and the combination of mad and sorcerer work really well as a title.
Yeah, that mad genius is a very common trope or title for villains, or that the mad something or other is relatively conventional. But lunatic already is a bit out there, and then using magician as opposed to like you said, any of the other potential titles of someone that uses magic.
I think magician, like a lot of people in at least the West, if they're not familiar with like fantasy tropes of how magic works, they would associate the word magician with the stage magician, somebody with the top hat tapping their stick at the hat and pulling a rabbit out. But like a lunatic magician isn't quite as scary as mad sorcerer to people who know what they're talking about. And I think that's a big downgrade. I think the fan translators are a little bit better for that experience.
It'll be interesting to see if they change that at all in the anime adaptation. My guess is they probably won't, because usually you end up having things just drawn from whatever official translation is already done in another medium, whether it be manga, light novel, what have you. So we'll see, but Studio Trigger has been known to make their own creative decisions on things, so maybe we'll get something with them, but we'll have to wait and see for that. But just the whole concept of this manga is super interesting, because there's a lot of cooking anime, manga, light novels, and a lot of different takes on it. That there's been, Food Wars has the combination of very based in reality cooking along with a fair bit of ecchi. There's one I enjoy called Restaurant to Another World, which again is more real life cooking and dishes and styles of cuisine paired along with usually episodic character stories, just little vignettes. And every so often you'll get different fantasy shows where you have, the local types of meat that is cooked, and you can say, all right, this is magical boar meat, or that you can actually cook orc meat in that most people won't have it, but you can conceptually eat it, but that they're very deliberately taking what sounds like at least conceptually realistic cooking mechanics, then applying it to distinctly fantasy ingredients and meats.
And that's exactly what this does.
But then also taking it to the next level with the fantasy combat element, and basically making it a whole research project of, okay, while we are discovering these things about the art and science of cooking, that we are also basically doing biology research for combat purposes.
That's not the premise of why they're eating them. It's because they it's out of necessity, because they don't have the resources to bring food with them. It's just the things they cook. They are fantastic. They're wonderful. They try to make them into real recipes. There will be a couple of pages where it shows like, okay, dice up the onions, cut up the carrots, and like we're gonna add these spices that we collected from this place, or like these people gave us, and like we're gonna skin this I don't know, small dragon that for some part of the story they've shrunk down dragon. We're gonna skin it. We're gonna roast it in here. We're gonna prepare it with these kinds of things, and then they show the final picture. They will show the title, what they call the food.
Oh yes, you have to have the dish title, just like you have to have
and
the special
nutritional value. They have the nutritional values. They have like the wheel with it has like a scale, and each spoke of the wheel has like iron or like, I don't know, calcium, protein, that kind of thing. And it's got like the spikes going out to how
You
much
have to respect the commitment to the bit.
And it is fantastic. Some of them they'll be like really fleshed out. It has everything that you need in it. Some of them will just go off the scale in one thing, but nothing else is very good. And it's so good. Like you'll have these fantastic prepared meals that like really well balanced. They have like lots of vegetables. They have all these things in it, and the nutritional value shows it. And then there's one story arc where you're following another adventurer who, again, out of necessity, has to eat monsters, but they don't have that knowledge of how to prepare and cook these meals. And they don't have the resources to have a well-balanced one, and you're like, it has barely any nutritional value in almost everything, and the only thing it's good for is protein. And you're like, yeah, you can see how much better this other team have it because they know what they're doing.
Because they're putting the preparation, and that is mirroring reality in that sense in this very distinctly fantasy world.
It's so good. It's probably the best written story I've read just ever. It's absolutely fantastic. I've read it, like I said, I've read it multiple times, and each time I read it, there's another new detail I notice. It's some kind of some kind of story hint for something that's going to happen later on. Or
that's always good when you can go back and realize, they were referencing this. They were teasing this, and we didn't even know it.
And you know, like the amount of times that there's callbacks to things that happened, or something. I'm reading the books again at the moment, and there's a chapter where I don't want to spoil things, but like for reasons that will be explained if you read it, one of the characters has to hide some books, and some people that they're talking to want these books. And the first time you see the character that's hiding the books, you don't see the books. And then later on, probably 10 pages later, they noticed that she was hiding the books in her trouser legs. Sorry, in her pant legs, for those of you who are from the States. Because you see these giant rectangles at the bottom of her trousers, just you can see them. But on my reread last time, the first time you see her, you see those there, and they are there throughout the entire scene. You just look at her legs, and you see these squares, these rectangles, in her trousers, because you see the books in there, and none of the characters notice them. And it's so good, because nobody mentions it, but the continuity of being they weren't just suddenly added when they noticed. They were there all along.
There, and it was just subtle enough that you might have thought it was an artistic choice that they chose to draw the trousers a little bit rectangular.
It's one of those small details that you're not looking at, because you're looking at the characters, you're looking at the dialogue, you're looking at action.
You're not looking at
you're not being
bottom
drawn
parts
to
of their
it.
legs.
Exactly. And it was there all along. Nobody acknowledged it. You didn't have to acknowledge it. And then by the time they finally notice, you're like, was that there all along? You flip back a few pages, you're like, oh, there it is. And it's everything about this. It's such a good story. I recommend it to everybody. I don't want to give too much of it away, because you have to experience it. I've talked about this so long, and I'm so sorry for those of you who might not be interested. But it's one of my current passions, and I'm so obsessed with it. There's a Twitter account dedicated to tweeting pictures of a specific character. There is a cat girl character in it called Izutsumi. She gets introduced halfway through the story, and from then on, she is my favorite character. And there's a Twitter account that tweets pictures, almost every single time she shows up in the manga. They've tweeted a picture of her. And I've saved so many of those pictures on my phone. I have a folder dedicated just to pictures of her. And I use them on Twitter all the time as reaction pictures. So if somebody says something really stupid, I'll reply with a picture of her.
Reaction.
And I've done that so many times that I've had multiple people draw fan art of me in those poses. My previous Twitter profile picture was of that character screaming and it's one of my favorite ones. I have I think I have 4 or 5 fan art pictures of me in those poses and those reaction faces, and they're my favorite. I love them so much because it connects me and my favorite series, and I love them so much. I really love this series.
Well, I'm sold that I'm definitely going to watch it when it is released as an anime, and like I said,
I can link you the trailer.
Yeah, you mentioned there was a trailer.
That trailer of there was a Studio Trigger did a trailer for one of the chapters that were coming up a few years ago, and they animated like 30 seconds of scenes, like various scenes up to that point. And it's so incredibly detailed. You can pause it and you can look at the frame and be like, this is identical to the book. And I know exactly where each scene has come from in the book because I can tell how accurate it is. And it's done so well, and I can't wait for them to do the entire series.
Well, I hope that's one we get next year.
I hope so. I hope so very much.
But we are actually starting to run low on time. That 2.5 hours has absolutely flown by. This has been so much fun, and I know that we could go for a while longer, but I don't want to keep you too long. So I have a couple of wrap-up questions. The first one is, do you have any goals for 2023? That we're halfway through December at this point. 2022 has flown by. So is there anything that you're really hoping to accomplish next year? It could be related to metrics. It could be a project. It could be I want to do this type of stream. But anything at all, is there something that you're actively looking to accomplish in 2023?
I've got a couple of things. I think the first thing I'd like to do is work more on my lore backstory with Mark, because we have 2 chapters of it out currently, and I'd like to catch up my lore backstory to where I currently am. I've got ideas that I want to get written, fleshed out, so that people can have an entire story of how I came from the very start to where I am. I'd like to get my first proper live 2D model. I have a little gremlin that's it's very quickly made. It was made into 2 days, drawn and rigged by the same person. It's got very, very limited animation. It's not a full 2D model. I have a design for my 2D model, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to go about and do this. Mostly for funding, but also finding the correct artists and riggers. I've never had to look into this kind of stuff, so I don't know what I'm doing with that. I think that's something I'd like to achieve next year, if possible. Maybe. Another personal goal is to stream or make more videos for YouTube. I'm still not even monetized on YouTube. I have 600 subscribers on YouTube because I do so little on there.
Ironic, because that's where you began, and the whole impetus for streaming was, I want to get better at YouTube, and then you found
it's very ironic
streaming.
Because I just don't pay attention to YouTube that much. I use it for uploading clips occasionally, but that I find funny and I want to save. I need to make a VOD channel so that I can upload. I can have a dedicated one for VODs and a dedicated one for produced content. I think that's something I really need to focus on. And the last one is not really related to me, but I would quite like to get into Kawa, to be honest. I like what they do. I'm friends with the manager. I talked to a few of the talents. I like what they do. I think it would be really nice for me to actually try something new. It is a corporation. They are a corporation of VTubers. It would be a slight change to my content because I'd have to switch to YouTube more. But I get to keep everything I've done, and I think that'd be really fun. So I'm not relying on it. It's not something that I can do at this point because I've done my application. But and it could be fun. I'd like to.
You're obviously doing incredibly well as an independent VTuber, as an independent content creator. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with aspirational. Just, hey, I'd like to, see if joining up with the corporation, having that extra bit of backing and just support and infrastructure, that's very natural to say it'd be nice to have that. And while it's not going to be a make or break in any way, that I think it's a very natural aspiration, but you have done, seriously, just a fantastic job. And learning today that it has all been so accidental, so circumstantial, just makes it all the better, because one, that speaks to your ability to adapt. The fact that you have just been able to take these instances, these circumstances, and run with it is that's a very good sign. That means that, if you're able to stumble upon these things and succeed when you're not even trying, it makes a lot of sense that once you started to actively work towards it, that you've been able to get the traction that you've had, and I'm sure that things will just continue to grow for you from here. So regardless of, Kawa or not, I think that you have a very, very bright future ahead, Dandyfloss, and that there's going to be a lot of fun things to come for you in 2023 and beyond.
I hope so. It's been a dream. I've absolutely loved being able to do this. It's one of those jobs where I call it a job, but it doesn't feel like one. Every other job I've had, it's been like a dedicated space where you go there to do something. You won't think about it when you're not there. You go there to do it. You get it done, and then you come back home, and you don't think about it anymore because that's like a dedicated space. VTubing has taken up my entire life. When I'm not streaming or like working away at something on my computer, I will not stop thinking about it. I will keep up with Twitter and Discord on my phone when I'm away. I'll be coming up with ideas. I'll be talking with people. It is a 24/7 kind of deal where you can't stop trying to improve. And like if you stop at any point, you kind of feel like you're going to get left behind. People are going to move on. It's not. I don't keep thinking about it because of necessity. I don't think about like, oh, if I take a break, I'm gonna be left behind. I just keep going because I love this.
And that's a very good place to be in.
I keep thinking about it. I see a lot of people burning out of streaming because they take it very seriously for a very long time, and they just like get burned out super quickly. But I've been doing this every day almost since September last year, full time, and I'm still not burned out. I'm absolutely loving it. I have gone back one of my days of streaming because I realized I have things I need to do other than streaming. But it's I've still got a lot to go, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens.
And I'm glad that you were able to recognize it. That I was going to say, obviously, when you have something that you're thinking about constantly, that puts you at risk of burnout, and it's a very exciting thing to hear that you end up in that headspace, not because you feel you have to, but because you want to. And at the same time, when you realize, okay, 6 days a week isn't going to be viable, and that if I try to push forward with this, that I will risk either burnout or just ending up having other parts of my life get into instability, and that you were able to make the healthy decision, say, all right, we're going to go from 6 days to 5, and that you were able to find that balance. And the balance is different for everyone, but that you've been able to find that balance that is right for you.
I've kind of fallen into it being like, when I was working full time, I would stream 8 p.m. till 11 p.m. in the evenings. So 3 hours. I think I did it 3 days a week most of the time. And then once I quit my job last year, I shifted that from the evening to the daytime, so that the block of time that was taken up by my job is now instead taken up by streaming, and I can get my evenings back for like, social events or if I need to work on something. So it very quickly took over as my job, but it's never felt like one. It's just like I just want to play. I just play video games.
That's
Basically,
a good place to be.
It's so strange that my job is based around just playing video games and making stupid comments and tweeting clips of it and putting them on TikTok or YouTube, and it is a dream come true. And I've played video games my whole life, and being able to do what I've watched on YouTube and Twitch since I was really young, and now I'm one of these people that other people like to watch. It's really it's strange that I feel like I inspire myself, being like, I do the kind of things I'd want to watch, like it's you get a lot of people who don't like what they do because they know it works. They're like, oh, I have to play Call of Duty because that's where the viewers are, and I'm like, I'm gonna play Hades, or I'm gonna play I don't know, some stupid weird indie game like, I don't know, Cluster Trucks.
I think that's the optimal play in the long run. That obviously you can play the Twitch meta, you can do what is going to be statistically correct in the short term, but taking the long-term mental approach and just fun approach, frankly, of I'm going to do what I want. That I happily hear a lot of people saying that, and I feel like it has become greater over time because I think that's part of the maturing of not just VTubers, but of content creators as a whole, realizing that it is better for them to do what they enjoy because you're just going to be able to create better content that way and not burn out and be able to truly enjoy what you're doing. So, like I said, I'm really glad that you've been able to find where that balance and where that fun is for you.
It's one of the things that my chat's constantly saying I'm addicted to Elden Ring because I stream it so often. And I'm like, I have a lot of fun with it. And I keep wanting to stream Elden Ring. So that's why I do it. Like, I don't do it because I get views.
Yeah,
I do get views on Elden Ring, but I play it because I really like the game.
And because you want to, not because you need to.
Exactly. So I will play it because I enjoy it. I don't think I've ever streamed a game because it had views. I have certainly not played games because nobody would watch it, because I no longer stream.
There's an understandable logic there of, okay, if I know this is going to distinctly not be successful, that you might not do one thing, but that's not that is striking one particular choice, not forcing yourself into a choice you dislike. You're just being a bit more selective.
Because my streaming, I started with Beat Saber. I no longer stream it because I look at the Twitch trends and realize that viewership for it has gone down dramatically since last year. People no longer talk about it as much. People don't want to watch it. And personally, I feel like everything that can be done with Beat Saber has been done. The only new stuff is new songs. And not everybody likes those songs.
Plus, DMCA can be a risk.
Yes, that is also a thing. Most of the ones that get requested whenever I play Beat Saber are anime songs. And not everyone likes that kind of style, so things like anime intro songs. And if it's not an anime you've watched, you're not going to have that connection to it.
Yeah, it's not going to be the same.
You're not going to be that interested. So
it's an inherently more isolating experience.
Yes. People will only watch Beat Saber streamers if they can watch the streamer play a song they like. And everyone has different tastes. Yes,
that's very limiting.
I have so much time and energy to play a limited number of songs. Because my usual streams are like 5 or 6 hours, but I can only stream like 2 or 3 hours of Beat Saber before I collapse.
Yeah, that's just physically demanding.
It's very demanding. So I can't get around to everyone's song requests, which means every single time I've streamed Beat Saber in the past year, it has historically performed worse than any other game I play, except Apex. Apex is just the game that never works on my channel, and I'm never streaming it again.
Thorn VT in the chat was saying she doesn't stream Apex anymore.
Yes, yeah, I didn't even notice that. But like, there are certainly games that I don't play because people won't watch, and I stream specifically because I want people to enjoy what I'm doing. And if I'm streaming something people don't like, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, and that's the healthy balance of metrics versus fun, and finding a way that you can make a choice that is right for you while also quote unquote right for the channel. And that I think that's the type of decision that is, like I said, a lot healthier.
I know there are views that could be gained if I streamed like Fortnite or Call of Duty, or I don't know, if I got good at Apex, maybe there would be some viewers there, but like it would isolate my current community. And
if you don't need to bother isolating, just don't. And it makes sense.
Exactly. I don't want to put off people that supported me, and I don't want to bore myself. Yeah. I have previously done a sponsored stream for a game that someone was like, here's the code, I'd like you to play this. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. I've had at least 2 instances where I didn't play it again because I didn't actually like it.
That's fine.
Sadly, like I wasn't paid to promote it. They just gave me a code, and so like, yeah, have a go at it.
There's nothing wrong with experimentation, trying new things. You need to try new things to see how they do, and you find out, all right, game's not for me. But there's nothing wrong with trying, and that's just part of the whole process.
Yeah, for sure. There's a whole world of games out there, and there's only so much time I have to dedicate to my streams. Because I stream 5 times a week, that's opportunities for 5 new games. But I kind of want to go back to the same games occasionally.
Enjoy the ones that you enjoy.
Yeah, so that's I'll play Subnautica or Elden Ring or Minecraft or I don't know, like a few series basically. Like I'm currently playing through the Half-Life series, and like I'd like to I being able to continue with those like a couple of days a week, so that I don't forget where I was months ago. I've certainly done that before. I tried to go back to a game that I haven't played for a few months and I forget the controls and I don't know what I was doing. So everyone says I'm addicted to a game because I keep playing it, and I'm like, I have reasons.
Reason being
I
that
know
you
what I'm
enjoy
doing.
it.
Yeah, it's mostly because I like it, but also there are practical reasons of like, I don't want to forget where I was.
That happens.
So, yeah.
And the last question I ask all my guests is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that is not asking what is the definition of a VTuber, but everybody gets something different from VTubing. I've had people say, it lets me get in touch with my inner child, or it lets me be someone that I can't be in reality. I've had others take a more clinical approach and say, it's a tool in my toolbox as a content creator. It's a mask that I wear that allows me to be a character that I couldn't be as a face cam streamer, but I don't necessarily have the emotional attachment to my model that it is a toy, it is a tool. And both of those answers on those pretty far ends of the same spectrum, and anything beyond in between is valid, but everybody has a different answer. So for you, Captain Dandyfloss, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
I think to me, I lean towards more that second answer, where I wouldn't be a content creator if I wasn't a VTuber. And I've developed a really strong attachment to my character, my community, things that I do on stream over these years. Where if I was no longer able to be a VTuber, I would stop. I don't think it's something I would want to do otherwise, because it's a character that I've grown attached to and I really connect with, and also like I like the opportunities it presents for me to be able to do without having to expose myself and be vulnerable and show my face on streams in other content. I've seen a lot of talk of previously facecam streamers or YouTubers or content creators moving over to VTubing because they like the opportunities it presents. And I feel a deep connection with being able to express myself in a way that I can't do without this medium. It's a game changer for so many people, and I feel very connected with it. So to me personally, VTubing means being able to express myself in a way that I can't otherwise. So it's fun, it's enjoyable, it gives me a platform I wouldn't have otherwise, and I it's changed the course of my life over the past few years without.
Certainly seems like it.
I can't like understate how much it's changed my life. My job, my living circumstances, my friends, my day-to-day life, everything I do now is completely different to how it was 2 or 3 years ago. And like I owe it all to this medium, and I wouldn't be here without being able to do this. So
that's one of the coolest things
how much it means to me.
For me to see, as a host and just as a viewer, frankly, that VTubing, which, like we said, really wasn't publicly accessible until the past couple of years, has had such a profound impact on so many people. Folks who would have not gotten into content creation otherwise have not only gotten into content creation, but like you said, made so many friends, had so many experiences that have fundamentally changed the course of their lives. And that's part of why the show exists, that I like hearing these stories. I like having these fun discussions. And I always ask that particular question at the end of the show, one, because it helps sort of put a bow on everything, but it also at the end, because while I never know how someone will answer, it always makes sense given just the natural discussions that we have over the course of the show and for you with all the stories of accidentally winding up here, that it makes sense that it for you is that platform of expression, and that you found it and realized how perfect it is for you, but that the circumstances wound up fitting what you were looking for in some ways that you didn't even realize at the time. And I think it's really cool that VTubing has enabled you and your content and the incredible community that has been so active. It's always so delightful when folks, show up in chat. So thank you so much to everyone who has been in chat today. And also, I missed MZ's. Thank you for the follow. That was like an hour ago, and I totally missed it. So sorry about that, but thank you for the follow. Thank you to everyone else who's followed, and thank you, Dandyfloss, for taking time out of your, like we were saying, very busy schedule to be here. This has been so much fun, and I just really appreciate you being here. Do you have anybody that you would like us to raid?
Oh, gosh. Let me have a look who's currently live.
In the meantime, give Dandyfloss one last shout out.
Oh, Domania's live. She was here earlier, actually.
Oh, yes, they were.
She did drop you a follow. She's doing some Stardew Valley currently.
Let me make sure I spell that right, and I can. Yes,
Domania
Duck. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm looking forward to seeing who else you might be interviewing. I saw you upload these to YouTube, and I saw that you've interviewed a lady.
Yeah.
She's someone I've spoken to a few times. I followed False for years. I almost applied for the lady position, but I was like, I like what I'm currently doing. It was the same thing as the corporate VTuber thing. I don't want to leave my community behind.
Yeah, and they've been allowed to say what they did previously, but obviously for branding purposes, that at least when you were creating on that channel, that you have to be with that model.
Yeah, I met Cody at London, actually, which was quite nice.
That's right. Yes,
I got a selfie with him, actually. Obviously, I can't share it because of for a reason.
Of course.
But he was really lovely. He's very knowledgeable. Very good choice for Vols's channel. I might have a word with him, see if he might want to appear on here, actually.
Ooh, yes.
Something that would be good fun.
Because, like you mentioned, I've had lady that I have actually reached out to False, haven't heard back. I'm just guessing, the guy's extraordinarily busy. I understand that he doesn't have time to respond to everything that
he is constantly working on stuff. It is incredible what they're doing over there.
I saw on that I'll usually watch his daily videos, that I'll tune into stream when I can, but I'll almost always watch the daily upload. And he mentioned that yesterday's upload is going to be the last of the year, that they are putting a cap on things for the year. And I'm frankly glad to hear that they're giving themselves that break, the whole team, and being able to just relax, enjoy the holidays. They're going to be appearing at Anime Los Angeles, which is super exciting. Really excited to see that. And obviously, it's so nice that the premier quote-unquote news outlet in the community is such a good one. That I spoke about it with Lady, that they do a great job of, they will sometimes have quote-unquote clickbaity titles, but the way they present the news once you are in the door is just so simple, neutral,
it's matter of fact.
That it's informational.
No opinions. It's just this is what happened. This is what happened because of this. Let's move on.
Yeah, and
it's not like this happened and this is bad because I don't like it. It's like, no, this is what happened. These are the people that were involved. It's very informative in that way, which is really good. I
appreciate that they sometimes have almost, like I said, clickbaity, misleading titles of just,
but that's just because of the YouTube algorithm. They know what they have to do. They'll play the algorithm,
they'll get in the door, and then it's just, the title makes it sound like somebody was upset, and it was actually a funny clip moment where they were jokingly upset with somebody else, and it was just a very funny thing that got a lot of shares, but that gets people in the door to hear the information.
Yep, that's about what they do. Is they know what they do, and I love it. Anyway, we were going to finish up. Sorry, we kind of got distracted there.
But again, thank you so much. This has been just a ton of fun. I wish you nothing but the best. I hope to see you around. So Again, Dandyfloss, thank you so much. And again, thank you to everybody in chat. I do these shows about once a week. You can follow me here on Twitch and Twitter. It's just VTuber Talk. And even if you're not following me, be sure to follow Dandyfloss. Her links are right there at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching live on Twitch, it's going to be in the channel panels. If you're watching on YouTube, hi, YouTube. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. There will be links in the video description. So, as always, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you all around. We'll be raiding into Domania Duck. Be sure to let them know that Dandyfloss sent you. See you all next time.
Take care. Bye, everyone.